While I'm clearing dishes from another table, I overhear someone at my mother-in-law's table say something shocking. Wait, we can eat all this for free? What? Did I just hear that right? Of course you can. My daughter-in-law owns this place, so eat as much as you want. Oh, we're out of wine, Lily. Sarah, grab us another bottle. I freeze, then walk straight toward their table. I can't let this slide. Free food? No way. I need to stop this. My name is Lily, and I'm a 35-year-old chef. I recently opened my own restaurant after years of hard work. After graduating from culinary school, I trained in different kitchens and finally made my dream come true. But owning a restaurant isn't the end goal. It's just the beginning. I'm the one responsible for keeping the customers happy and making sure the business stays afloat. When I opened the restaurant, I was so excited and determined to give it my all. Or so I thought. A party to celebrate the opening of the restaurant. Yes, exactly. You should be grateful, you know. I'm going to invite a bunch of my friends to help you out. Oh, okay. How many people are we talking about? About 30, including me. 30? Since it's that many people, you'll have to reserve the whole restaurant for us. Right, that makes sense. I'll figure it out. It'll be great. Let's make it a big celebration. I'll tell you the date later. Ah, sure. This sudden request came from Susan, my mother-in-law. Sure, a reservation for 30 people sounds great on paper. But here's the issue. Susan loves fancy things, but never wants to pay for them. She's always coming to our house for dinner, expecting free meals. When I first married my husband Mark, she invited me to go shopping with her. I thought it was a great chance to bond with her. Oh, this bag is so cute. What do you think? Do you like it? Yes, it looks great on you. You really think so? Then I have to get it. Oh no, I forgot my purse. Lily, could you lend me some money? I'll pay you back later. Please. This bag might be sold out if I wait. Well, maybe she was right. Susan wouldn't stop pushing, so I ended up paying for the $500 bag. After that, she invited me to lunch, and guess what? I paid for that too. It's been 2 or 3 years now, and she still hasn't paid me back a single cent. I've reminded her a few times, but she always brushes it off with, I don't have the money right now, or next time, I promise. That's why I avoid going shopping or eating out with her. When she invites me, I always say I'm too busy with work. Susan gets annoyed and says, you should come sometimes, you know. But I know she only wants me to pay for her, so I don't care. Even though I try to avoid her, she still comes to our house all the time and eats dinner with us without any shame. You're such a talented chef, Lily. Your food is always so delicious. Thank you. Oh no, we're out of wine. Don't you have any more? Sorry, Susan, but you drank most of it. Well, you knew I was coming. You should have had at least 2 or 3 bottles ready. Excuse me? She comes to eat for free, and on top of that, she demands more. If it were just her, I could say no. But the real problem is my husband, Mark, always takes her side. Mom's right, you know. She's our guest. And since you're a chef, you should have planned better. Just go buy more wine. I have no idea what's going through his head. I do push back when I need to, but sometimes it's just easier to give in and avoid a fight. I used to think Mark was amazing when we first met. We met on a blind date. He worked for a big company and he had so much confidence. As a chef working hard to build my career, I admired his confidence. He seemed like someone who got things done. And working at a leading company made me think he was successful and driven. Sure, I noticed he was sometimes a little unreasonable, but I thought it was just part of his personality as a go-getter. We started dating, and eventually we got married. But after moving in together, things started to change. Mark would complain about his job all the time. He'd say things like, no one at work appreciates my true talent, or, my boss is terrible, he blames me for everything. His complaints didn't add up, and I started doubting him. I guess you don't truly know someone until you're married. At first it was just complaining. But then, 6 months before I opened my restaurant, he quit his job. I can't stay at a company that doesn't value me. I'll find another job where I can show my true potential, he said. I've never worked in a company, so I don't really understand how it all works. All I can do is trust Mark and hope he finds a good job soon. I'm too busy preparing for my restaurant to worry much about what he's doing. But 6 months go by, And Mark is still unemployed. None of his interviews seem to be working out. Lately, I don't even know if he's still trying to get a job. This means Mark, like his mom Susan, is also eating for free, so you can imagine how frustrating it is when he still acts like he's in charge. Finally, the day of Susan's so-called opening party arrives. She shows up beaming with excitement and brings 29 of her friends with her. Oh wait, Mark's here too, so it's actually 28 friends. Lily, thank you so much for this. Sure. What does she mean by thank you? If she's thanking me for serving food to her friends, fine, I'm happy to do that. But if she means, thanks for letting us eat for free, that's a different story. This dinner reservation is for 30 people and dinner is way more expensive than lunch. I'm nervous about how much this will cost. But I try to focus on serving the guests and making sure everything goes smoothly. Wow, everything tastes amazing. This place looks incredible. You can tell how much effort went into it. Hearing those compliments makes me so happy. But it drives me crazy when Susan keeps saying, I am right, like she's the one who owns the restaurant. Halfway through the evening, as I'm clearing plates from another table, I overhear something shocking from Susan's table. Wait, are we really allowed to eat all this for free? Huh? What did she just say? Of course, my son's wife owns this place, so eat as much as you want. Oh, the wine's gone. Lily, bring us another bottle. I march straight over to Susan's table. I can't let this slide. Susan, I'm not serving this food for free. What are you talking about? I brought all these people here, so you should be grateful. That doesn't mean you can eat for free. But of course, Mark takes her side. Lily, stop embarrassing my mom. Just let her enjoy herself tonight, okay? What do you mean tonight? This isn't fair. Don't forget you owe me, who helped you with the startup money for this restaurant. That has nothing to do with this. But Susan cuts me off. There's still more food coming, so go back to the kitchen and hurry up. I glare at her but head back to the kitchen. As I walk away, I hear one of her friends whisper, Is everything okay? Susan replies confidently, Don't worry, she knows she's serving us for free. Her friends don't seem to fully understand what's happening. Meanwhile, dessert is served and everyone seems to enjoy the food. Lily, everything was amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you, Susan. The total comes to $2,700. What? Not just Susan, but also her friends are shocked. You said we wouldn't have to pay today. I know, but that's not the case anymore. Susan, how could you expect me to serve 30 people for free? You're going to pay the full amount. Lily, stop. You're causing trouble for Mom. I'm the one who's in trouble. And why are you acting like this? You're not even working. What? Mark's unemployed? I thought you told us he worked at a big company and was getting promoted soon. Well, right now, I'm just taking a break. Lily, don't embarrass me in front of everyone. You're the one who refuses to work. Susan, you're the one who should be embarrassed. And by the way, you still owe me for everything. Oh, you? Yes, I remember you helped me with the startup money for this restaurant. I'm thankful for that. I gave you $10,000. So at the very least, you should pay me back with today's bill. Okay, fine. With that, I press a button and close the restaurant's shutters. Susan, what are you doing? Why are you closing the exit? I'm not letting anyone leave without paying. If you're not going to pay the $2,700, I'll call the police. The police? Are you crazy? Susan's friends start getting upset. We only came because you said everything would be free. Yeah, we're not dealing with the police. Lily, help me out. Susan begs. Why should I? I never agreed to serve anyone for free. I never said she didn't know. Susan quickly tries to cover up. Well, here's the deal. Either everyone pays $90 each or you pay the full $2,700, Susan. Are you not listening? You owe me $10,000, so today's bill should go toward that. Susan, I know none of that $10,000 came from you. You've been lying to me this whole time. What do you mean? When I told your husband I was opening the restaurant, he said the $10,000 was a gift from the family, but you made it seem like it came from you. You've been tricking me into thinking I owe you money just so you could eat for free. No, that's not what Susan's friends now glare at her. You made me pay for dinner the other day and said I'd get to eat for free today. I paid for the spa we went to, and you said we'd be even with this dinner. I pay for your concert ticket, the scarf you're wearing, the gas for our trip, and the coffee. Susan's friends all listed the things they had paid for her. Well, maybe I can forgive the coffee. That's my honest opinion. Susan looks like she's about to faint and starts begging. Please, I'll pay you later, just let everyone go home. None of you have to pay now. You still haven't paid me back the $500 for the bag. Pay now or we'll call the police. No, please. I don't have the money with me. How can you expect me to pay this much all at once? Fine, I'll ask your husband to bring the money. What? No, please don't. They'll be so mad. That's not my problem. Either we call him or the police. You decide. No. Okay then, I'll call the police. Okay. Call my husband, just not the police. In 20 minutes, her husband arrives. What on earth is going on here? I'm sorry. Lily, I apologize for my wife's behavior. He hands me the $2,700. Don't apologize. It's not your fault. I open the shutters and let Susan's friends leave. I'm so sorry about what happened. My apologies too. The food was great. I'll be back. Thank you. Please do. Only my in-laws and husband are left in the restaurant. When will you stop? I'm so sorry. It won't happen again. Please forgive me, Susan begs. No, I'm not letting this slide anymore. I know about the startup money, how you're always getting free meals, the $2,700 your husband paid today, the $500 for the bag, and all the times you've made me pay. You're going to work and pay it all back. Please no. Can you talk to Mark as well? He's still unemployed, I say. What? Susan's husband turns to Mark. Mark, what's going on here? Well, I just haven't found the right company. You've got to be kidding me. You used my connections to get into that great company and blew it. Huh? Mark, is that true? Wow, you never told me. You never asked, Mark says. I can't believe this. I want a divorce. No way, you can't divorce me. Are you out of your mind? You're completely depending on Lily's income. Of course, she'll divorce you. You're just a burden to her. I demand that you divorce her. Don't cause Lily any more trouble. Sometime later, I start dating an editor from a magazine who came to interview my restaurant. A few years pass, and we get married and have a child. I continue managing my restaurant, and we're all living happily. What was Susan thinking? Free food for 30 people? I'd love to get inside her head and figure out what's going on in there. At least her husband was a good man. I'm happy for Lily. Not only did she escape her terrible husband, but she found happiness with her new life. I hope her business continues to thrive. Thanks for sticking around until the end. Please subscribe to our channel if you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you in the next one. Hello, everyone. I'm Amber, and I'd like to share a story about my mother-in-law's behavior toward me and how I handled the situation. My mother-in-law, Patricia, has always been quite curious about my inheritance. Since I married her son, Raymond, she's frequently asked, Amber, when will you receive your inheritance? I heard it's around $35 million. Just think of the luxurious life we could have with that kind of money. It's taking forever to process, isn't it? Her persistent inquiries revealed her keen interest in my finances. Initially, I naively shared details about my inheritance, a decision I now regret. Following that, Patricia became overly friendly and her constant questioning began to wear on me. My husband, Raymond, and my father-in-law, Gary, would often reprimand her. Patricia, you need to stop bothering Amber about her inheritance. They'd say, it's irrelevant when or if she receives it. It's none of our business. Raymond even pointed out, Mom, you're being incredibly rude and irritating to Amber. We're doing well financially and even supporting you and Dad. What more could you possibly want? Yet Patricia continued to dream aloud of a more extravagant lifestyle, suggesting we could move from our current home into a mansion. Her fixation on my finances was evident. In an attempt to shift the conversation, I joked, who knows if I'll ever receive that inheritance? The process is complicated, and for all you know, I might have made the whole thing up. Everyone laughed at my remark. Everyone except Patricia, who shot me a stern look, clearly upset. After that incident, Patricia's attitude toward me changed drastically. She became openly hostile and insulting, revealing her greed and how deeply my words had affected her. Her behavior escalated, showcasing a surprising level of animosity once she realized I might not be as wealthy as she had imagined. A turning point came one day while Raymond and Gary were away. I found myself alone with Patricia in the kitchen, where she regarded me with disdain. With an air of urgency, she demanded that I follow her to her room, signaling the start of an unexpected and challenging confrontation. "We need to talk in private," she insisted, and her insistence only piqued my curiosity while making me uneasy. A thought flickered through my mind, connecting her urgency to a potential postnuptial agreement. Though I wasn't entirely sure why that notion lingered, I was determined not to be left in the dark. I followed her into her room, and to my surprise, Patricia locked the door behind us. Gripping the keys tightly, she demanded, "Amber, you're staying in here until you sign these papers." I was taken aback, struggling to understand her motives and the severity of her actions. With an intensity that left me uneasy, Patricia explained that she wanted me to sign a post-nuptial agreement prepared by a lawyer. This document was designed to ensure that I would have no financial claims against Raymond in the event of a divorce. I was stunned and couldn't fathom why she would assume that Raymond and I would ever part ways. Despite my protests and disbelief at her insinuations, Patricia remained unyielding, insisting that she had everything under control and implying that she would play a significant role in our future. Reluctantly, I began to read the document, curious about its stipulations and the extent of its demands. The agreement was strict, stating that in the event of a divorce, neither Raymond nor I would have any financial claims on each other, effectively denying alimony and any division of assets. This meant we could only retain what was individually in our names. The terms were shocking and ignited a wave of anger within me. I confronted Patricia, questioning the necessity and suddenness of such a document. We had never discussed any prenuptial or postnuptial agreement before, and her actions seemed to suggest deeper issues and intentions. This situation had escalated far beyond simple family dynamics, revealing a complex web of motives and potential conflicts. Patricia's true colors emerged as she confessed that she had initially welcomed me to the family under the assumption that I would inherit $35 million, which would eliminate the need for a prenuptial agreement for her son. Now, she accused me of lying and called me a gold digger, claiming I was a financial burden to Raymond. She insisted I sign the prenup to protect his assets, all while plotting our separation. It became painfully clear that Patricia's silence about a prenup all these years stemmed from her hope of benefiting from my supposed inheritance. Upon discovering that the inheritance might be a mirage, she aimed to strip me of any future claims to Raymond's assets. Her manipulative plan was evident: to fabricate a narrative or create a scenario that would push Raymond toward divorce, favoring a wealthier match to secure a luxurious life for her family. Patricia's disdain was palpable as she insisted that Raymond deserved better than to marry someone without a significant inheritance, completely disregarding the love and bond we shared. Her vision was clouded by greed, seeing me only as an obstacle to her fanciful lifestyle. Her words, a mixture of fury and revelation, struck me deeply. I had always felt an underlying tension between Raymond, Gary, and Patricia, but her blatant greed and disregard for the sanctity of our marriage were shocking. This encounter revealed her willingness to sacrifice her son's happiness for material gain, a realization that only deepened my gratitude for having no inheritance to tie me to her expectations. Determined not to let Patricia's manipulations dictate my choices, I stood firm against signing the post-nuptial agreement she waved in front of me. If Raymond believed such an agreement was necessary, I insisted it should be a mutual decision made with proper legal counsel, not a unilateral demand from his mother. I was resolute, fully aware that she might try to keep me from leaving without acquiescing, but I was prepared to confront her, armed with the truth and the integrity of my relationship with Raymond. Patricia seemed to revel in the control she wielded over me, reminding me that Raymond and Gary wouldn't return from their fishing trip for a while. She leveraged my work responsibilities against me, knowing I was desperate to return to my duties. Frustrated, I demanded the keys, eager to escape her grasp. But then, she escalated the situation, painfully grabbing my hand and hurling cruel accusations at me, calling me a gold digger among other insults. My anxiety soared as her grip tightened and her screams filled the air, drowning out my boss's persistent calls for my return to work. Feeling trapped and overwhelmed by Patricia's intimidation and the pressure of my pending responsibilities, I reluctantly signed the document she presented, watching her satisfied smirk grow wider. As soon as she released me, I dashed from the room the moment she unlocked the door, locking myself in another room to find solace and safety. Once alone, I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart and process what had just happened. I reached out to my boss and explained the ordeal with Patricia. She was incredibly understanding and supportive, appalled by Patricia's behavior. She kindly offered me the day off to recover from the distressing incident. Determined to document the physical evidence of Patricia's aggression, I photographed the bruises on my arm, stark reminders of how far she would go. As I reflected on her actions, my frustration and anger mounted. I knew she needed to face consequences for her behavior. Rather than disturbing Raymond and Gary while they were away, I decided to wait until they returned to address the incident in person. When they arrived the next day, cheerful from their trip, the atmosphere quickly shifted as they sensed the tension between Patricia and me. Raymond, sensing something was off, approached me for answers, but I asked for some time before going into detail. Seizing the moment, Patricia quickly engaged Raymond in conversation, presumably to discuss the prenup, oblivious to the confrontation that had occurred in their absence. We were on the brink of a revelation, each of us holding pieces of a story that had yet to unfold. Not long after, Patricia called for Raymond. He descended the stairs, visibly upset and frustrated, holding the controversial document in hand. "What's this all about, Dad? Did you know about these papers?" he demanded, referring to the post-nuptial agreement his mother had orchestrated. Gary, taken aback, genuinely knew nothing of the scheme. "What papers are you talking about, Raymond? What post-nup?" he asked, bewildered by the sudden tension. "It's a ridiculous post-nup Mom cooked up for Amber and me," Raymond explained, clearly finding the entire situation absurd and unjustifiable. Gary immediately clarified, "Raymond, I'm completely out of the loop here. I have no idea what this is about." His confusion and surprise were palpable as he turned his gaze toward Patricia, seeking an explanation. Cornered, Patricia defended her actions under the guise of protection. "I'm doing this for your own good, Raymond. Your wife isn't going to bring anything but trouble. She's just after your money," Patricia accused, labeling Amber a gold digger and insinuating she had fabricated a story about an inheritance to ensnare Raymond. Shocked by his mother's harsh words, Raymond struggled to comprehend her twisted logic. "What does Amber's inheritance have to do with us? How can you say such things, Mom?" he asked, his confusion evident. Patricia doubled down, painting a grim picture of Amber exploiting Raymond and leaving him financially drained after a divorce. She urged him to sign the post-nuptial agreement and consider seeking a more financially suitable partner, further inflaming the situation. This accusation ignited a fire in Raymond. He vehemently defended Amber, joined by Gary, marking a rare moment of unity against Patricia's manipulations. It was a turning point for me, witnessing Raymond stand up for our relationship and dispelling any fears about his loyalty. What they both didn't know was that the truth about my inheritance had come through the day before, a detail I hadn't shared amidst the chaos. As the argument subsided, Raymond's gaze met mine, filled with questions and concern. "Amber, why did you agree to sign that post-nup? You should have waited for me. You know I'd never support such a thing. Why let Mom pressure you into this?" His disappointment was evident, but it was mingled with a genuine desire to understand and rectify the situation together. I reassured Raymond, "I never doubted you would request such a thing. You've always supported me unconditionally. I intended to discuss the post-nup with you, but I never got the chance." I explained how Patricia had trapped me in her room, her grip unyielding, until I reluctantly signed the document. My lack of choice was clear. I had been coerced into giving my signature. Raymond and Gary were visibly shocked by my account, especially since Patricia didn't even attempt to refute my claims. Instead, she appeared almost smug about her actions, which only fueled the outrage in my husband and father-in-law. Their disbelief quickly turned to anger as they noticed the marks on my arm. "What have you done to Amber? How could you lay hands on my wife? This is assault," Raymond exclaimed, while Gary condemned Patricia's actions as madness. Patricia tried to justify her behavior by claiming she was protecting her son from being taken advantage of, insisting she acted out of maternal instinct. But Raymond countered her claims with disgust, emphasizing that his marriage to me had never been about financial gain. Still clinging to her delusions of a wealthier life, Patricia lamented Raymond's supposed promise to elevate their living standards. Patricia believed that marrying into wealth was the only way to achieve the life she desired. This assertion only deepened the divide, prompting Raymond and Gary to challenge her greed and her disregard for the values that truly mattered to them. The argument escalated as both men confronted her harmful actions, and gradually her obstinance began to crack under the weight of their unified stance. It became clear that she was realizing her actions had crossed a line far beyond what was defensible. Cornered and recognizing that Gary and Raymond were not on her side, Patricia resorted to tears, attempting to sway them with an emotional outburst. She cried, claiming her actions were for the betterment of the family and insisting she deserved a better life for all her sacrifices, including providing them with a home. She portrayed herself as the victim wronged by those she had sheltered. Raymond responded with a reality check, reminding her that their living arrangement was mutually beneficial. He highlighted that he and I were the ones financially supporting the household, not the other way around. Fed up with her manipulative tactics, he declared that they would move out and cease all financial support, signaling a drastic change prompted by her actions. Gary, too, had reached his limit. Years of enduring Patricia's greed had worn him thin, especially now that she had resorted to aggression and manipulation against me. Offering a lifeline, he suggested that he could leave with us, disassociating himself from Patricia's toxic behavior and affirming his support, not for her actions, but for us, his family by choice. Unfazed, Patricia mocked our ability to survive without her, predicting a grim future for us living in substandard conditions. Her taunts were meant to belittle and undermine our decision, banking on the assumption of our financial instability. It was then that I chose to reveal the truth, countering her bleak predictions with confidence. Housing and supporting us won't be an issue, I calmly stated, challenging her narrative of financial doom. Still entrenched in her delusions, Patricia laughed off my assertion, labeling me a gold digger who was incapable of providing for Raymond and Gary without her. Her scorn was palpable, yet it was based on outdated information. I corrected Patricia's assumption. Far from the broke individual she had painted me to be, I was neither financially destitute nor a gold digger. My choice to remain silent about my financial status had been intentional, not a necessity. And it was time she understood the reality she had so grossly misjudged. In that moment, I revealed, actually, I'm quite well off thanks to the $35 million I have access to. While not all of it is liquid, there's more than enough to go around. The surprise in the room was palpable, especially for Patricia, who was clearly taken aback by this sudden shift in my financial narrative. Patricia, bewildered, challenged me, "But you said there was no inheritance. You lied." I responded, a bit wearily, "Patricia, your nagging was exhausting." I made a flippant remark about not having an inheritance without expecting it to unveil your true intentions. Honestly, I'm thankful for that joke now. It showed me who you really are. This revelation left Patricia scrambling, her mind racing for ways to mend our fractured relationship. She attempted to downplay her earlier hostility, laughing it off as she claimed, "Oh, Amber, you trickster. We could have avoided so much misunderstanding if only you had told us earlier." I countered firmly, "Really, Patricia? If I had clarified it was a joke, you wouldn't have pushed for that postnuptial agreement or tried to sabotage my marriage, would you?" Her attempts to retract her actions, claiming she had gotten carried away and admitting her rudeness while tearing up the postnuptial agreement, were too little, too late. "Patricia, it's clear now that you shouldn't concern yourself with my inheritance. Our relationship can't be mended so easily. If Raymond is still on board with moving out and cutting ties, I fully support that decision." This moment marked a turning point for me, emphasizing my independence and readiness to move forward without the strain of Patricia's manipulative tactics. I prioritized my well-being and my relationship with Raymond over any financial entanglement with her. Raymond made it clear, "We're moving out, Amber. My mother's greed knows no bounds, and I refuse to let her exploit you any further. We'll leave by the end of the month, and Dad's coming with us." This decision was unanimous. Raymond and I had already begun house hunting and found the perfect place an hour away. Securing a house and planning a move within a month might seem daunting, but our financial stability made the process smooth and efficient. Gary decided to join us, ready to step into a new chapter of his life as he initiated divorce proceedings against Patricia. His decision came independently, driven by the events that had unfolded, and he filed for divorce within the same month we planned to move. Desperate and cornered, Patricia pleaded with us to reconsider, trying to elicit sympathy through tears and apologies. However, Her financial predicament only compounded her woes. Without a personal income and with Gary's financial dependence on Raymond, neither was eligible for alimony. Ironically, Gary was entitled to half of Patricia's house, as it was acquired during their marriage, leading to the very outcome she had feared and tried to avoid by meddling in our finances. She would have to sell her home. The divorce process dragged on for a year, marked by mandatory separation periods and Patricia's visible distress over her dwindling finances. She was forced to expedite the sale of her house for survival. After the divorce was finalized and their assets settled, Gary opted for a modest apartment, valuing his independence and wishing not to impose on our new life. We continued to support him financially, able to do so comfortably. While tumultuous, this series of events reinforced our family bonds, underscoring the importance of integrity, support, and the true value of relationships over material gain. Recently, I experienced a shocking incident that left me profoundly unsettled. In an unexpected and unsettling turn of events, my mother-in-law seized my passport and intentionally burned it. The flames quickly consumed the document, reducing it to nothing but ashes in a matter of moments. This abrupt act dashed my plans for a vacation to Street B's Island, leaving me in a state of disbelief. When I confronted her for an explanation, she simply smirked, coldly declaring that since I was a stranger in her eyes, I wouldn't be traveling anywhere but staying home beside her. My husband, Peter, merely offered a grin, complicit in their deceit. Their cruel maneuver was shocking, though not entirely surprising. However, the level of their sneakiness was beyond anything I had anticipated. They seemed to revel in their scheme, sharing laughs over what they considered a triumph. Frustrated and desperate to assert my identity, I reminded them who I was. My name is Kayla. I'm 30 years old and I'm a linguist. I study and teach languages at the university, a role that often requires me to travel abroad for extended periods as I engage with different cultures and share my knowledge. My job demands frequent travel, often taking me away from home for months at a time. Before this career, I never imagined marriage would be in my future. But everything changed when I returned to my home country at 25 and met Peter, who would later become my husband. Despite the challenges posed by my career, which keeps me overseas for about half the year, Peter and I maintained our relationship through constant communication via phone calls and emails. We married when I was 27, and he has been incredibly supportive, even with the long separations that define our life together. As I made my way home from the airport after a 6-month absence, I felt excitement bubbling within me rather than fatigue. I was eager to reunite with Peter, hoping for a joyful reunion and perhaps a resolution to the turmoil his family had caused. Upon arriving home, I discovered that Peter hadn't yet returned, so I started tidying up. Although I always remind him to keep our place neat, I usually find it somewhat disordered. Normally, this would bother me, but today I decided to overlook it because I was simply too thrilled to see him again. As I busied myself in the kitchen, I heard the front door open. It was Peter. Overjoyed, I rushed to greet him. "Welcome home, Peter. It's so good to see you." But his response was lukewarm. "Oh, hi, Kayla. You're back," he said, almost dismissively. After 6 months apart, I couldn't hide my disappointment. "Peter, aren't you going to say you miss me?" I asked, trying to mask my hurt. He shrugged. "We've been doing this for a while, so I guess I'm used to it. I'm just really tired." "Is dinner ready?" he asked, shifting the conversation. "Yes, it's ready. Let's eat." Dinner should have felt special after so many months apart, but today it was tinged with sadness. His attention seemed divided as he constantly glanced at his phone while we ate. I couldn't hold back my frustration any longer. "Hey, Peter, why do you keep staring at your phone?" I asked, trying to mask my irritation. He brushed me off, claiming there's nothing wrong. "But you've been gone, and we've stayed connected through calls and emails, right? There's nothing new to discuss." His dismissive attitude stung. "That may be true, Peter, but it's been a long time since we've been together. Shouldn't that count for something?" My tone sharpened with my growing frustration, and I could see it upset him. He stood up abruptly, placing his phone on the table, and glared at me. "You just came off a plane. But I'm exhausted from work, he snapped, and his words cut deep. I'm tired too. I came straight here after work. Don't talk to me like that, I retorted, my voice rising. I didn't ask you to rush home. You chose to come back immediately, he replied coldly. His words felt like a slap in the face, but I needed to express how I felt. You don't have to say it like that. Despite everything, I missed you. For a moment, we both paused, the weight of my words hanging heavily between us. After months apart, I had returned only to find the atmosphere chillingly tense. Peter's reception was colder than I had expected. As we sat down for dinner, he blurted out, I didn't ask you to rush home. If you're going to act like this, maybe you shouldn't have come back at all. You're being annoying, Kayla. Frustrated, he slammed his hand on the table and stormed out of the room, leaving his dinner untouched. Alone and confused, I wondered why he was acting so cold. I had eagerly anticipated our reunion, but it felt like I was the only one excited. What was the point of coming home early if it only ended in disappointment? Tears spilled onto the table as I sat there, the joy of our reunion overshadowed by a sinking feeling of dread. The next morning, the tension still lingered. When I greeted him with a good morning, he shot me a frosty look and said bitterly, I envy you. You get to relax at home all the time while I'm stuck working. That's not true, I replied, trying to correct him. I have a lot of work too, summarizing our activities, preparing for the next training session. It's more work than you think. He dismissed my efforts with a wave. Sure, but you can do it from home. I wish I had a job where I could take half the year off. Enjoy your time at home, princess. Stunned by his sarcastic tone, I watched as he left the house without another word. We had argued before, but he had never been this cutting. His sarcasm left me puzzled and worried about the growing rift between us, and I found myself pondering what might help mend our relationship. I busied myself with household chores, vacuuming and changing the linens when my phone rang. It was my mother-in-law. A sense of unease washed over me as I answered, Hello, Kayla here. Hi, Kayla. It's been a while. I heard you're back home and had a rough day yesterday, she said, her tone casual. Yes, that's right, I replied, unsure of where this conversation was headed. And I also heard you upset Peter, she added, her voice taking on a sharper edge. He was quite angry. Her words added to my confusion and worry, leaving me questioning how I could bridge the growing gap between Peter and me since my return. Then, during the call, my mother-in-law's suggestion caught me off guard. Now that you're back, how about we plan a family trip? She proposed. Before I could process the idea, she continued, I was talking with my husband about going to Street Barks Island, and Peter mentioned he wanted to join us. You used to travel abroad, right? Could you help us with hotel reservations and other arrangements? Her request felt loaded. It was clear from her tone that she didn't relish the thought of traveling with me but saw an opportunity to leverage my travel experience. My relationship with her had always been strained. She had never hidden her disdain for me, especially since our first meeting at the wedding reception, where her sarcastic attitude had made a lasting impression. Even after 3 years of marriage, her views hadn't softened. When I was working abroad, she often sent stinging messages questioning my commitment as a wife. How can you be a wife and stay away from home for months? If you don't take care of the house, I'd rather my son marry someone else. It was a mistake to let him marry you. Those memories made me apprehensive about her proposal. It felt as if I were being used merely to facilitate their travel plans, a task that seemed far more appealing to her than enduring her usual critiques. I was frustrated with myself for my inability to decline, even though I knew I was being manipulated. A few hours later, Peter returned from work in a noticeably better mood than before. He dropped his briefcase on the sofa, flashed a wide smile, and said, Mom called, didn't she? We can go on a trip to Street Barts. Yeah, I heard, I replied cautiously. But you're not thinking of turning it down, are you? Mom wants you to come with us, he pressed, his enthusiasm making it even harder for me to express my reservations. I understood his desire for me to be involved, but the dynamics made me uneasy. How could I navigate this situation without escalating tensions or feeling even more used? As the conversation about the family trip continued, I tentatively suggested, why don't you just go with your mom and dad as you originally planned? The moment those words left my lips, Peter's demeanor shifted dramatically. He clicked his tongue, and his voice turned more threatening. You need to understand your role here. The only time you're useful to us is when we're traveling. His words stung. You don't have to talk to me like that, I protested. It's true, isn't it? He shot back, undeterred. Anyway, you'll handle all the flight and hotel bookings, and everything should be in my name. But Peter, you're going to pay for the whole trip, I clarified, trying to understand our financial arrangement. What are you talking about? We'll split the cost 50-50. It's a small price to pay to show respect to our parents, he argued, implying that my objection was disrespectful. And what does that mean? If you've got time to lounge around at home, make the reservations now, he demanded. This isn't right. I don't want to, I mumbled, my voice barely above a whisper. What are you mumbling about? He scoffed, grabbing a beer from the fridge and downing it in one gulp. Despite my inner turmoil and the unfairness of the situation, I felt cornered, embarrassed, and without a real choice. Reluctantly, I proceeded to make all the arrangements for the flights and accommodations for the trip to Street Barts, just as Peter and his mother had insisted. I was set to pick them up at my in-laws' house and head straight to the airport, but a few days before our departure, I found myself restless and unable to sleep. Late at night, I noticed Peter wasn't beside me. I walked to the living room and overheard him on the phone. It's okay, Mom. I'll be there first thing in the morning as planned. Please handle the passport issue. Anyway, seriously, I'm looking forward to it. I'll make sure to introduce her to you, he said into the receiver. Hearing this stirred a mix of emotions within me. What was supposed to be a family trip was morphing into a series of commands and manipulations, and now there were secrets involved too. I stood there, unsure of how to confront this new revelation. When I returned home, Peter's conversation still echoed in my mind. He had mentioned a passport and an introduction, and since he was talking to his mother, I was certain she was on the other end. It felt like there were hidden plans that I wasn't privy to, leaving me uneasy about the upcoming trip. Clearly, something was being orchestrated behind my back, but I couldn't grasp the full extent of it. Determined to remain vigilant, I cautiously prepared for our departure. The day of our trip to Street Barts finally arrived. I methodically packed both my carry-on and handbag, including items for my husband, ensuring we were ready for the journey. With everything set, Peter and I drove to my in-laws' house. As we approached, I braced myself, unsure of what awaited us, but ready to face whatever might come. Upon our arrival, it was only my mother-in-law who greeted us. Oh, hi Kayla. It's been a while. Good to see you. We're almost ready. I just need to grab a few things for the trip, so it might be a little while, she said, her tone casual yet laced with urgency, raising my suspicions even further. Okay, take your time, I replied, trying to mask my growing unease. I nodded in response, but then she added, Oh, and Kayla, could you bring the carry-on case from the other room? It's heavy, so please get Peter to help you. Sure, I'll do that. I agreed, keenly observing the exchange of knowing glances between my husband and mother-in-law. I kept my passport securely in my pocket, an instinctual move born from the mistrust that had been building. Following my husband's directions, I returned to the living room with the carry-on, only to find my mother-in-law waiting for me with a mischievous grin. To my horror, she was holding my passport in her hands. Now you can't go on the trip to Street Barts, she declared, a smirk spreading across her face. What do you mean? I asked, disbelief washing over me. The weight of her words began to sink in. I'm going to burn this passport right now, she threatened. What did you just say? I responded, my heart racing. I was just using you to handle the trip arrangements, she admitted callously. You're a stranger here, so you'll be staying behind. Too bad. Her words struck me like a cold slap. The situation was far worse than I had imagined, and the betrayal cut deep. I realized I was not just an outsider in their plans, but merely a pawn in whatever game they were playing. The revelation left me reeling, unsure of how to respond to such blatant manipulation and deceit. In a sudden and shocking move, my mother-in-law stormed into the kitchen, lit a lighter, and set my passport ablaze in the sink. The document quickly caught fire, turning to black ashes before our eyes. We did it, she triumphantly declared. My husband joined in, cheering, Yeah, Mom. We made it. No, I interjected, my voice rising. It's just the three of us on this trip, right? We'll get to meet Peter's new girlfriend when we get back. I've already set that up, my mother-in-law replied nonchalantly. We don't need this useless woman anymore. My father-in-law chimed in coldly, pulling out his cell phone to show me pictures of himself with another woman, a satisfied grin on his face. I'm not divorcing you for the sake of my reputation, but you'll be staying here while we go on our trip. When we get back, I'll move in with her, and you can leave." My mother-in-law laughed mockingly at his words, and their expressions were filled with malice. At that moment, I realized the depth of their betrayal. I realized I no longer belonged in a family like this. Forcing a smile, I asked, "By the way, whose passport is that?" "What are you talking about? It's yours, of course," she replied confidently. "I took it out of your handbag." "My passport is right here," I said, holding up my actual passport from my pocket. "What? No, it can't be," she stammered, her confidence wavering. I showed her my passport, still intact. "Yes, it's my passport. See for yourself." Panic washed over her as the realization dawned. Her face turned pale. "That's not possible," she muttered, her voice trembling. It seemed my mother-in-law had mistakenly believed she had taken my passport from my handbag without checking thoroughly before burning it. "Whose passport did I burn then?" she asked, her voice quivering with fear and confusion. "I guess it was your son's passport that was in there," I suggested. "You burned my son's passport," she gasped, horrified. My mother-in-law turned white as the weight of her mistake hit her. The already strained family dynamics were now irrevocably shaken by her rash actions and the underlying schemes that had come to light. As the chaos unfolded, my husband's fury erupted. "What have you done? I told you to be careful. I only found one passport in her handbag. Who would have thought it belonged to me? I don't care. You didn't check properly. And now look what's happened," he shouted. "You're saying it's my fault. If you had checked from the start, I wouldn't have made this mistake," she retorted, her voice rising in defense. Their argument escalated quickly, each blaming the other amidst the turmoil. My husband turned to me, exasperated. "Hey, Kayla, do something." But I refused to be dragged further into their mess. "Seriously, who do you think you are, telling me what to do? You cheated on me behind my back. How dare you both? You and your mother are despicable." "Hey, who do you think you're talking to?" My husband snapped. "I'm talking to you and your awful mother. Don't think I'm just going to let this slide. You're going to pay me back for the affair and all the nasty things your mother has said to me," I declared, my resolve hardening. Just then, my father-in-law appeared, drawn by the noise. "What's going on here?" he demanded. After I explained everything, he was livid. The planned trip was immediately canceled, and the fallout was severe. My mother-in-law faced a divorce while my husband was disowned by his father and banned from returning home. I consulted a lawyer and proceeded with the divorce, demanding alimony from both my ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law. They were required to pay in one lump sum and cover the costs of the canceled trip to Street Nevis Island. Financially unprepared, they had to borrow money to meet these demands. In the end, my ex-husband, now living with his mother, found himself in a tough financial situation. He was also abandoned by the woman he had an affair with. Meanwhile, I used the alimony money to move into a condo and start anew, embracing a life of independence free from deceit and mistreatment. I faced many challenges, but I emerged stronger. Now, I'm loving life, planning to continue my travels, learning about different cultures, and sharing my experiences with the world. This morning, I made a breakfast soup, but it didn't turn out as well as I'd hoped. It's a bit thin and lacks flavor. Maybe next time we could try making it thicker, though we should be careful with the salt, since my doctor advised me to cut back on it. That said, I do enjoy bold flavors. Speaking of preferences, my mother-in-law Brittany is quite particular about her food. She loves it heavily seasoned, even though her health isn't the best. She's a bit overweight and on the verge of diabetes. Her doctor has warned her to be mindful of her diet, but she doesn't seem too concerned. She often adds extra salt and pepper to the dishes I prepare, no matter how many health-conscious spices I use. It's surprising how much seasoning she adds, and it never seems to satisfy her. I'm genuinely worried about her health if she keeps this up. Dealing with Brittany is challenging. She's often critical and difficult. My name is Diana. I'm 31, and aside from working, I manage our home. I've been married for 4 years, and we don't have children. The issue is I'm unable to have children, and Brittany never lets me forget it. She often tells me that as a woman, My inability to bear children makes me less valuable, and I should be grateful just to be allowed in the house. We've tried many times, and I've gone through countless treatments, but nothing has worked. It's been physically and emotionally draining. So, I've decided to stop the treatments. They're expensive, and continuing without any guarantee of success feels futile. My husband once mentioned that investing in fertility treatments felt pointless. This whole situation weighs heavily on me, especially when my husband echoes his mother's harsh words, agreeing that my inability to conceive somehow makes me incomplete. Despite everything, I've always wanted a child, but now I'm beginning to think it might be time to accept our circumstances and find peace with it. Even though my husband keeps urging me to try for a baby quickly, the pressure only makes things worse. I can't just get pregnant because it's expected of me. After stopping the fertility treatments, I thought maybe I could find happiness just with my husband, but my mother-in-law keeps pushing the idea of a grandchild. She often brings it up, even buying diapers and showing them to me, saying, "Look, I got diapers. You'll need them one day." To that, I responded, "Aren't those a bit small for you, Brittany?" She replied with excitement, "These are for a baby, can't you see?" I sarcastically shot back, "Well, I wouldn't know. I'm the broken woman who can't have kids." That comment upset her, and she stormed off to her room. I was relieved when she left, already exhausted from work and not in the mood to deal with her harsh remarks. It seems like her favorite pastime is making my life more difficult. We moved in with my in-laws after my father-in-law passed away a year ago. It was a tough time for Brittany, and around then, her doctor also warned her about her risk of diabetes. We moved in to support her, but despite her condition, she's doing okay as long as she sticks to her medications and follows a proper diet. Yet she often neglects her meds and eats whatever she likes, putting her health at risk. Honestly, it's exhausting to watch. I dread the thought of being responsible for her care. I'm still in my 20s, working full-time, and managing everything already feels overwhelming. The next day, my day off, I found myself caught up with household chores. Usually my mother-in-law spends her time lounging on the sofa with snacks, but to my surprise, she got up and wandered into my room. I didn't want her in there, but my hands were full, so I didn't object when she said she'd clean my room. "Thanks," I replied, though I couldn't shake the suspicion gnawing at me. She added, "You know, if you leave your room messy, you'll attract bugs." And I managed a strained smile, replying, "Sure, enjoy your clean room." But something about her behavior still didn't sit right with me. It seemed like she took my polite response as gratitude, but it only made me feel more uncertain about her intentions. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was up to something. That evening, I decided to sleep in my husband's room. He had been away on business since the day before and wouldn't be back for a while. Even if he found out, I knew he wouldn't mind. We usually slept in separate rooms because of my nursing job with its irregular hours and night shifts. Our relationship had grown a bit distant over time, and I didn't want to disturb him with my odd hours. After making sure my mother-in-law had gone to her room, I slipped into my husband's thinking, "She's in her room now. I can finally get some rest." I ended up spending 3 nights there. My mother-in-law, however, began to grow suspicious of my unusually upbeat demeanor. One day, she asked, "Are you sure you're not feeling any discomfort or anything?" I dodged her gaze and replied, "What do you mean?" She dropped the subject quickly, but it was clear she was thinking about something. Later that day, as she ate her meal alone, I prepared to relax before my night shift. Relaxing isn't easy with my mother-in-law around, though. She rarely helps with the housework and prefers to give me orders instead. It's hard to unwind when she's constantly lounging on the couch, munching on snacks, and absorbed in her women's manga. I couldn't help but feel like she was scheming her next move to rile me up. Glancing at the comic cover, I saw it was titled Epic Mother and Daughter-in-Law Swamp Battle. I rolled my eyes at her dramatic choice of reading material. My husband finally returned late from his trip around 9:00 p.m., looking utterly exhausted. "I'm going to take a bath," he announced. "Sure, I'll heat it for you. Have a beer while you wait," I suggested. He was about to agree when I added, "Actually, it's not safe to drink alcohol before a bath." He sighed and opted for a non-alcoholic beer instead, probably more out of habit than anything. I thought my caution was common sense. After all, even saunas have signs warning against drinking before entering, but it seems common sense isn't so common in our house. After his bath, my husband started singing loudly. We live in a single-family home, but it was late and I worried about the neighbors. "Hey, you're too loud." I called out. Shut it, you're the one being loud. He shot back. I quietly urged him to stop, but then my mother-in-law intervened, walking into the bathroom area to defend him. What's wrong with that? She challenged. You don't know how to treat your husband, do you? Always so inconsiderate and complaining. I snapped. I'm not the one always complaining, Brittany. I shot back. You're definitely not cute. Not that you were a beauty to begin with. She sneered in response. I shrugged it off, replying, That's okay with me. I probably look like a knockout in some other country. No worries. Afterward, my husband finished his bath and started drinking. It was already 9:40 p.m., and I needed to leave for my shift at the hospital. Even though it was close by, there was still a lot to prepare for the busy night ahead. As I got ready to leave a bit early, I mentioned to my husband, By the way, I've been sleeping in your room. Would you mind using mine tonight? My clothes are all over the place. He casually responded, Sure, doesn't matter to me. Okay, I'm heading out then. Take care, I whispered to him, trying to keep my voice low so Brittany wouldn't overhear. Just as I reached for my bag, I heard my husband let out a loud groan. I turned around to find him curled up on the floor, clutching his leg, his face twisted in pain. Brittany's face went pale as she panicked. What's happening? Speak, she demanded, but he was too hurt to respond. I felt a rush of adrenaline, knowing I needed to act quickly. But then I noticed something strange. The floor was unusually slippery. Even in my socks, I felt like I could easily slip. What on earth is this? I exclaimed, looking at both my husband and Brittany. Brittany, what did you do? I didn't do anything. It's not my fault. Brittany protested, but it was clear blaming anyone wouldn't help in that moment. Without hesitation, I called for an ambulance. My husband was rushed straight to the hospital where I worked, and suddenly, work became the last thing on my mind. At the hospital, he continued to clutch his leg, sweating and writhing in pain. It hurt so bad, he groaned. Hang in there, please, I pleaded, feeling helpless as I watched him suffer. Thankfully, a doctor quickly examined him and confirmed my fears. It was a broken leg, a fifth metatarsal fracture, just like I had suspected. His foot was visibly swollen, a typical sign of this kind of injury, usually caused by tripping or putting too much weight on the foot. I couldn't help but recall my own experience years ago when I twisted my ankle falling down the stairs. I'd been lost in my music, not paying attention, and heard a loud snap followed by searing pain. I'd been diagnosed with the same fracture. It was an embarrassing memory, but it rushed back as I saw my husband in similar distress. I ended up telling a white lie to my close friends about my husband's injury. Since the fracture wasn't life-threatening, he didn't need to stay at the hospital and was able to come home that day. I was still scheduled for my night shift, but my nursing supervisor insisted I take the night off. She said the injury wasn't severe, but she seemed genuinely concerned about us. Later, while my husband was resting, he remarked, I survived, but now I've got a fever. Well, you did break your leg, so a fever isn't too surprising, I replied, but I'm wondering why the floor was so slippery. Maybe we should ask Brittany about that. Curious and wary, I approached Brittany. Hey, what did you do to the floor in the room? I asked. Her response shocked me. Well, the floor was slippery because I slipped and fell. I could have seriously hurt myself, she said defensively. Before I could say anything, my husband interjected. Brittany, she then shockingly admitted, that room is meant for my daughter-in-law. So I greased the floor. I was hoping she'd slip, so I put a lot of grease on it. I never expected you to go in there and slip. I was in complete disbelief. Unbelievable, I muttered. My mother-in-law had actually greased the floor, hoping I'd fall. Though she claimed to have cleaned the room, her true intention was to cause me harm. I was furious. If I had entered that room, I could have seriously injured myself. Breaking my leg would have been the least of my worries. Hitting my head could have been fatal. Her actions were borderline criminal. You're despicable. You're not even family to me anymore, I shouted. I could have been badly hurt because of you. I'm going to the police. But Brittany, desperate to deflect, retorted, Wait a minute. I didn't directly cause harm, did I? Your wife was the one who told you to go into that room. So this is all her fault. Shut up. That's not the point. My husband snapped, dialing the police. As he struggled with the phone, my mother-in-law tried to grab it from him. Despite the pain from his broken leg, my husband clung to the phone, speaking urgently with the police. I was torn, wishing I could be anywhere but here, maybe even at work at the hospital far from this chaos. I knew it wouldn't be long before the neighbors found out, especially since I had almost been hurt too. I considered calling the police myself, wondering if she might face charges for attempted assault. But as I voiced this, Brittany interrupted, "Wait, now I don't want the police involved." I was stunned by her casual response. "Really? You knew what could happen when you chose this path? Did you think you could just erase me from existence?" Brittany's indifferent reply shocked me further. I did hope it would be simpler if he just vanished. "Wow," I sneered. "You're downright criminal in your thinking. Personally, I wish they'd lock you away forever." That's when I made my decision. "That's it. Let's get a divorce." "What?" my husband exclaimed. "You can't be serious. After everything, you're just going to walk away?" "I can't live like this anymore," I replied firmly. "Your moral compass is so skewed. I can't bear it any longer." "Wait, please don't end our marriage over this," my husband pleaded. "I don't need you. I'm perfectly capable on my own," I said, my resolve unwavering. "I need you," he countered, desperation in his voice. "I was counting on your income. I even signed a contract for that Honda Century I've always wanted." "I don't care about that anymore," I said, cutting him off. I went to clean the grimy floor, hastily packed my things, and grabbed my wedding ring, setting it on the table. I then rummaged through a shelf full of old papers and found the divorce papers he prepared before when he'd said we'd divorce if I couldn't have a child within 3 years. Well, I can't have children now. So thanks, but no thanks. With that, I sealed my decision, holding the divorce papers firmly in my hand. "Let's get this over with." My husband tried to argue, asking about the loan for his cherished car, but I wasn't interested. "Who cares?" I muttered, leaving him behind. I headed straight to the hospital, and when I arrived, the compassionate charge nurse seemed to understand immediately. She didn't need to ask many questions. She could tell that I had my reasons. Being a nurse, I knew I could support myself without relying on anyone else. As I thought about everything that had happened, I couldn't help but wonder why I tolerated poor treatment from my in-laws for so long. The entire situation seemed absurd now. I decided to focus solely on my work and leave the past behind. The next morning, I filed for divorce, and just like that, he became my ex-husband. Given all the emotional turmoil he had caused, I consulted a lawyer about seeking compensation. In the end, my ex was ordered to pay me, and I couldn't help but think, serves you right. The police involvement had made the neighbors avoid my mother-in-law. She had openly talked about how my ex-husband had broken his leg, casting her in a negative light. Everyone now saw her for what she was, a terrible parent. Eventually, my ex distanced himself from her and seemed to kick her out. She complained about her new life, lamenting how difficult it was to adjust to living alone on a minimal survivor's benefit. Our previous grocery bills had been outrageous, and she struggled to adapt. As for my ex, I lost all interest in what happened to him. He had taken me for granted and expected me to contribute financially, which had been a huge annoyance. Though he wasn't exactly wealthy, he still made impulsive decisions like taking out a loan for a new car, something I doubted he could even afford. 3 years later, I met a doctor from the hospital, and we started dating. After a year, we married, and a miracle happened. We were blessed with a child. Despite everything I had been through, I was finally living the life I'd always deserved. From now on, I promised myself I would cherish each moment with my family and make the most of these new beginnings. Hi, I'm Susan, and I'm 30 years old. I met my husband Ethan through a mutual friend, and after 2 years of dating, we decided to get married. While we haven't started a family yet, we're thoroughly enjoying our life together. Ethan's family owns a successful factory with around 50 employees. The company was founded by his late father and has flourished thanks to the hard work of everyone involved. Right now, Ethan's sister Maria runs the business. She's unmarried and has a natural talent for leadership, which she seems to have inherited from their mother, both of whom are exceptional communicators. Maria is warm and welcoming. She made me feel like a sister the moment we met, a stark contrast to the way I grew up with my brothers. However, not everything is without challenges. The factory is close to our family home. and since Ethan's father passed away, my mother-in-law has retired and spends her time looking forward to our 2 p.m. coffee breaks, which I've come to dread. Every time I'm asked to fetch her coffee, it feels like my mood sinks. She uses these breaks to express her discontent, often questioning why Ethan and I haven't had children yet, a subject that's out of our hands. If I don't respond to her probing, she becomes irritated and says hurtful things, questioning my worthiness as Ethan's wife and even making cruel remarks about my late parents. The tension between us dates back to when I first met Ethan's family. Upon learning that both of my parents had passed away, my mother from cancer when I was 8 and my father from a heart attack when I was 18, my mother-in-law was visibly shocked. I had a tough childhood, but my father raised my brother and me on his own, and I miss him deeply, especially since he passed away before I had the chance to truly show him how grateful I was for everything he sacrificed. Navigating these family dynamics has been tough, especially when dealing with my mother-in-law's harsh words. Yet despite these challenges, the bond I share with Ethan and the kindness I've received from parts of his family, especially Maria, has given me strength. I'm learning how to handle the more difficult relationships with grace. People often express sympathy when they learn about my past, acknowledging the hardships I must have faced growing up without my parents. However, my mother-in-law's reaction was different. "So you might not live long either, huh?" she remarked once, leaving me stunned with her blunt, insensitive words. Ethan was just as shocked as I was, but my mother-in-law continued as if it were a practical concern. As I struggled with my place in the family, Maria, who had been quiet until then, suddenly made her stance clear. Slamming her hand on the table, she interrupted the tension with a firm voice that cut through the silence. When my mother-in-law tried to seek Maria's support, saying, "Right, Maria? You agree with me, don't you?" Maria responded with a frosty glare and said, "What are you talking about? Ethan chose Susan himself, and she's wonderful. Why can't you support that?" Her protective words took my mother-in-law by surprise, and from that point on, the overtly harsh comments stopped, at least when others were around. The subtle digs, however, continued, especially during our one-on-one coffee breaks, where I could always sense her disappointment if I, not Maria, was the one bringing her coffee. Thankfully, Ethan and I didn't live with his family. We rented a nearby room, which provided some distance from her negativity, limiting our interactions to those brief coffee moments. Our respite from living under the same roof was cut short when a record-breaking hurricane caused severe damage to our apartment. The ceiling leaked so badly that it became uninhabitable. As we tried to manage the situation, Maria suggested we stay with them, smiling innocently as she offered a solution. "Why worry? Just stay with us. Your commute will be 25 seconds. Given the circumstances, we moved in with Ethan's family temporarily. When we arrived, my mother-in-law greeted us with a warm, though mostly directed at Ethan, "Welcome home, Ethan. It must have been tough, but Mom is happy we can live together again." Ethan, however, seemed distant, almost rebellious in his response. After a moment, my mother-in-law noticed me and remarked, "Oh, Susan, you're here too. I didn't notice because you're so quiet. Smile more." Her attempt at lightheartedness only added tension to the already strained atmosphere reflected in Ethan's frustrated expression. The dynamic in the house felt off, but this experience only highlighted the complex layers of family interactions and the resilience needed to navigate them, especially now that we were living under the same roof following the hurricane damage to our apartment. When we moved in with my in-laws, I knew adjusting to life under the same roof would be a challenge. To show my appreciation, I decided to cook a simple but hearty dinner on our first night, bread soup and steak. Both my mother-in-law and sister-in-law complimented the meal, easing some of my tension and offering me a brief moment of relief. However, just as I thought dinner was winding down, my mother-in-law surprised everyone by standing up, humming cheerfully, and retrieving a container from the fridge. She then generously topped her steak with its contents, which to my shock, was jam. The sight of jam on a perfectly cooked steak caught everyone's attention. My husband, sitting next to me, looked visibly disgusted, while Maria rolled her eyes and commented that no amount of persuasion could stop their mother from her peculiar food habits. She then burst into laughter. The pairing was, indeed, unusual. When you eat something salty, you crave something sweet, right? My mother-in-law explained, clearly pleased with herself. Despite her enthusiasm, the thought alone made my stomach churn. Sensing my hesitation, she encouraged me to try it, proclaiming it was delicious. I forced a smile, but it clearly didn't satisfy her. "I'm recommending it for a reason. You might live longer if you follow my example," she added cryptically before leaving the room. Afterward, my husband and Maria quickly apologized for her strange behavior, explaining that their mother had an intense sweet tooth and never felt her day was complete without something sugary. They were amazed her health checkups always came back normal despite her odd diet. Maria revealed that she was often sent to buy cake because their mother found it embarrassing to do so herself. This errand had made Maria quite familiar with all the local cake shops. Ethan chimed in, expressing concern about their mother's health habits and feeling guilty that Maria often had to manage their mother's whims alone. "Well, I think you guys will have to help out more from now on," Maria said with a cheerful grin, suggesting that we might be in for more lively interactions with their mother while living together. Despite the challenges of living with my in-laws, there were some perks, like the drastically shorter commute. But it also meant navigating a complex web of family dynamics, dietary quirks, and unexpected comments all under one roof. I had taken on the responsibility of managing the household chores, trying to keep everything in order before and after my workday. But despite my efforts to engage with my mother-in-law, she frequently dismissed me or reacted coldly. Regardless of her attitude, she never missed an opportunity to criticize the children during our coffee breaks. Since relocating here, my days had become increasingly difficult due to the added stress, which was starting to show in my mood. Ethan noticed this shift and suggested multiple times that we should visit a doctor together. He even proposed escaping to a hotel for a short break, but I declined, considering it an unnecessary expense, especially since the nearest hotel was quite far away. The situation worsened when my husband announced an upcoming week-long business trip, and to my dismay, Maria would be accompanying him. This meant I'd be alone with my mother-in-law, which filled me with dread. Though he offered to take me along, I decided against it, hoping I could endure the week on my own despite feeling unwell. On the morning they left, Maria sent me a message titled "Mother-in-Law Survival Guide." The message humorously advised, "If anything happens, just give her cake, and you'll be fine." It included a list of local cake shops and her favorite selections from each. Surprisingly, the quirky guide brought me some comfort as I braced myself for the tough week ahead. I was holding onto a fragile thread of optimism, convinced that once the week passed, our home renovations would be finished and I could return to our usual living situation. But that hope quickly faded on the first evening alone. I came home from work to find my mother-in-law blocking the entrance with an air of confrontation. She demanded, "You know why I'm angry, don't you?" I responded, a bit exasperated, "No, I'm not psychic." It turned out I had missed the scheduled 2 p.m. coffee breaks, something that slipped my mind amidst the chaos of juggling work and home responsibilities. With my husband and Maria away, I had hoped my mother-in-law would understand, given her own work history. But instead, the moment we were alone, she lashed out at me, accusing me of starting this harassment and calling me a wicked woman. I was stunned, feeling an overwhelming sense of disconnect. All I had done was inadvertently forget a couple of coffee breaks, yet I was being treated with such hostility. I counted down the days until my husband and sister-in-law returned, clinging to the hope that I just had a few more days to endure the tense atmosphere. During a particularly rough day, I bought a cake on my lunch break and left it in the office fridge, planning to use it as a peace offering for my mother-in-law. When I mentioned the forgotten cake later, her demeanor shifted completely from anger to delight. "Let's just forget today happened. Just don't forget tomorrow, okay?" she said with renewed cheerfulness before returning to her room. From that point on, I made a point to remember the coffee breaks, dreading the fallout if I slipped up again. But the stress of it all began to take a toll on me. The morning my husband and Maria were due back, I was overwhelmed with nausea, headaches, and a total loss of appetite. I couldn't manage work, so I took the day off and went to the hospital. The doctor's words shattered me. "It's quite serious. Can your family come right away?" I was diagnosed with cancer and given a prognosis of possibly only 2 to 5 months left to live. As I left the doctor's office, tears stained my face. I was physically shaking, emotionally spent. I returned home, collapsed onto the bed, and was immediately interrupted by the door slamming open. My mother-in-law stormed in, scolding me for skipping work while everyone else was working hard. Her harsh words only made my headache worse. With little energy left, I muttered that I was feeling ill and tried to turn away to close my eyes. She didn't let up, continuing to rant about my supposed inadequacies and even insinuating that I wouldn't live long. I lay there silently, feigning sleep, hoping she would leave. Then she demanded to know why I hadn't prepared for today's coffee break. Her insensitivity was appalling. I opened my eyes to find her hovering over me. "Grace, I'm sorry, I just can't go shopping today. Could you please?" I started weakly. She cut me off dismissively. "Get me chocolate cake, and stop faking your illness." My frustration reached its boiling point. "Shut up. Listen to me," I shouted. "I have 1 month to live. Go buy your damn cake, you idiot." The words left her speechless, her eyes wide in shock. At that moment, my husband and Maria appeared, alarmed by the confrontation. "Mom, what are you doing?" my husband asked. "What do you mean by 1 more month?" His face was pale, mirroring Maria's concern. Ignoring his visibly shaken mother, my husband rushed to my side, offering me the support I so desperately needed. His sudden presence brought a wave of relief, and I broke down, tears flowing uncontrollably. "I can't take it anymore," I sobbed. I sobbed uncontrollably, the weight of the doctor's words still echoing in my mind. It might be cancer, he had said, and I felt nothing but dread and sorrow. But through it all, my mother-in-law's relentless nagging to go out and buy cake was pushing me to my breaking point. Enough was enough. "Stop bothering me about the kids too," I snapped, finally letting the anger I had bottled up for so long pour out. "Just leave me alone, you idiot." The frustration I had kept hidden came flooding out, and as I broke down in tears, my husband and sister-in-law exchanged cold, disapproving glares with my mother-in-law. The absurdity of asking a sick person to go buy cake now seemed glaringly obvious. Maria, who was usually so cheerful, wore an expression of grim determination that felt almost intimidating in the tense moment. Then my husband raised his voice, revealing something we had kept private for so long. "You've been making cruel comments about us not having kids. Well, the reason we can't have kids is because of me," he confessed. "After we got married, we went to a doctor. The tests showed that I had fertility issues." He paused, the weight of his words hanging heavy between us. "I never wanted to burden Susan with it, so we kept it to ourselves. But now you know." My mother-in-law's face drained of color as the realization set in. It was a blow she hadn't expected. Just then, my phone rang, the hospital. The urgency in their voice heightened my anxiety, and the tears began to fall again. "It's okay, Susan. Can you stand?" "I'm right here with you," my husband whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Together, we rushed to the hospital, my heart pounding in my chest. Once there, we were ushered into a room where the doctor and the hospital director were waiting for us. The news that followed was nothing short of a shock. There had been a dreadful mistake. My medical records had been confused with another patient who shared the same name and birth date. The diagnosis had been a misdiagnosis. I didn't have cancer. The gravity of the error hit me like a tidal wave, and the exhausted faces of the medical staff made it all the more surreal. The mix-up even made local news, with the hospital promising a review of their procedures. They referred us to another facility for follow-up care. As we left, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of relief and disbelief. At my in-laws' house, Maria had clearly spoken to my mother-in-law, who now seemed to shrink in her chair, almost as if deflated. Later, Maria confided in me, her voice filled with emotion. "I was terrified, Susan. Terrified that I might lose my brother's wife. That moment of vulnerability between us helped heal some of the tension that had been hanging over our family. It was a painful but necessary revelation." Then, in an unexpected twist of fate, everything changed again. As Maria, with genuine concern, asked about my well-being, I found myself laughing through my tears. "I'm pregnant," I said, joy flooding through me. My husband's face mirrored my emotions as we both cried, overwhelmed with happiness. We rushed to the maternity hospital, and after a few tests, it was confirmed. Yes, we were expecting. We could hear the heartbeat, and the joy we both felt was beyond words. Maria, who had come with us, shed tears of happiness too. The roller coaster of emotions didn't stop there. Soon after, Maria announced her engagement to her longtime boyfriend and her plans to move to another state. It wasn't a surprise to us, though my mother-in-law was completely blindsided when she heard the news. "What? You're getting married and moving away?" she exclaimed in disbelief. Maria, ever so calm, reminded her, "Yeah, I told you about it before." But with everything finally settled, we all shared a laugh over her confusion. When we returned home, the renovations had been completed. The roof was fixed, and our room looked brand new. We cheered with joy, grateful for the fresh start that had arrived. But even amidst the joy, the atmosphere with my mother-in-law remained tense. My husband was particularly upset, harboring a deep anger that was hard to let go. He had even said he never wanted to see his mother again. Yet slowly, something shifted. My mother-in-law began to show up more often, but not with cakes as she had before. Now she brought healthier options like biscuits, a sign that she was trying to change. And now that she knew she would soon be a grandmother, she seemed to be softening. The employees who had worked with my father-in-law when he was CEO seemed pleased to see her, and I started to realize that she wasn't entirely unkind, just a bit misguided. Over time, our interactions improved. She began to help more, buying diapers, leaving homemade side dishes outside our door in a cooler so as not to disturb us. These thoughtful gestures started to mean more to me, and I began to see that we could actually get along. The moment that sealed this transformation came shortly after our daughter Catherine was born. My mother-in-law took my hand, her eyes filled with tears, and she said, "Thank you, Susan. Really, thank you." Her sincerity in that moment was the first real sign of change, and I knew it was genuine. Maria, too, seemed to be thriving in her new life. She recently shared her pregnancy news with us, and it felt like a full-circle moment. Soon, we would all be gathered together at the in-laws' house, sharing a meal, not in tension, but in harmony. It felt like a new beginning, one I had never expected, but welcomed with open arms. While dining at an upscale restaurant, I found myself in an unexpectedly tense confrontation with my mother-in-law. She glanced at me dismissively, smirking with a wave of her hand, her contempt unmistakable. Frustration simmered within me, but I kept my composure. "Are you asking me to leave?" I asked, my voice steady despite the anger just beneath the surface. I was ready to walk out when she abruptly interjected, "Wait a minute. If you leave now, who will pay the bill? Hand over the money." Her tone was both arrogant and commanding. I responded with a calm smile. "Why should I pay for someone who's practically a stranger to me? My name is Emma. I'm 31 years old and I work in an office. My husband James and I usually have a harmonious life together, but his mother's intrusive and domineering behavior is a constant strain. Living nearby, she often drops by our home uninvited, always ready to critique, from my cooking, which she claims isn't good enough for her son, to my housekeeping, which she deems inadequate. Despite knowing I work full-time, she often criticizes me for not keeping a perfect home, especially when she visits in the evenings. What's more frustrating is that she portrays a different persona around James, making it hard for him to see her true nature. He remains oblivious, believing her behavior to be harmless since he's never witnessed her harshness firsthand. The situation escalated further when she acquired a key to her house, courtesy of James, making it almost impossible to set the boundaries I desperately needed. She frequently uses this key to enter our home whenever she pleases, often to criticize my cooking or cleaning and to disparage me to our neighbors. It's become one issue after another with her. I've repeatedly told James that I'd prefer us to move further away, but he's been so focused on a major project at work that my concerns often go unnoticed. Then, unexpectedly, things began to shift. James received a promotion due to the success of his project, increasing our income and finally allowing him to consider a move. With this new financial stability, he's even started talking about the idea of starting a family, making me hopeful that we might finally establish the boundaries I've been longing for. I agreed, but I made it clear, if we were going to raise children, we needed a more family-friendly environment. Our current area lacked safe play spaces and had limited daycare options. After much discussion, my husband finally agreed that moving was the right choice. This decision brought me more joy than his promotion. However, my happiness was short-lived. The next day, my mother-in-law arrived unannounced, as usual, which immediately irked me, bracing myself for her criticisms. But this visit was different. She seemed excited and wanted to celebrate her son's promotion by inviting him to a lavish restaurant known for its exquisite cuisine and exceptional service. "That sounds nice, good for you," I replied, trying to remain polite. "You're still not very friendly," she remarked, then continued, "Anyway, I want you to come with us. Please join us." I tried to keep my options open without committing. "I'll see if I can, but it might not work out," I replied. "Don't say that. We want you to come," she insisted, brushing aside my hesitation. Her sudden eagerness for me to join, despite frequently excluding me from family outings, left me both puzzled and cautiously hopeful that maybe this could mark a shift in our relationship. Later, I brought it up with my husband. He explained that he'd already agreed to accompany her and that she'd taken the initiative to book the restaurant for all of us. "You're excited about this, right, Emma?" he asked with a hopeful tone. I decided to be honest. "Actually, I'm not. I'm worried about the expense at such an upscale place. Maybe you could let them know I'm busy and just go without me." "Why are you being so negative?" he replied, disappointed. "It's not just us. My brothers and their wives will be there too. It would be strange if you didn't come and celebrate with everyone." His enthusiasm was clear, but it felt like he wasn't really listening to my concerns. It was as though he was siding with his mother's wishes over mine. If that was the case, I had a backup plan. I had purchased a small voice recorder online to discreetly capture any unkind remarks she might make during the evening. If she acted out, I'd play it back for my husband to help him understand the situation. If he still took her side after that, it might be time to reassess our relationship. Though this decision gave me some peace, the idea of joining them at the restaurant felt daunting, and I couldn't help but sigh at the thought. Additionally, I barely knew my husband's brothers, making the prospect even more unsettling. I had only briefly met my husband's brothers and their wives at our wedding, and our interactions had been limited to polite hellos. When we arrived at the restaurant, a waiter led us to a spacious room where my mother-in-law, one of my husband's brothers and his wife, along with another brother and his wife, were already seated. The table was elegantly set, creating an atmosphere for what was meant to be a celebratory dinner. However, confusion arose when my husband noticed there was only one empty chair at the table. He looked puzzled, wondering if there had been a mistake with the seating arrangement. "Did the waiter mess up?" "I'll go check," he said before leaving the room. As soon as he stepped out, everyone at the table began to eat, and that's when my mother-in-law turned to me with a harsh glare. "There's no seat for you. Why would I invite someone who just married into our family to this celebration? Here's your choice. Do you want to be part of our family, or do you want to leave and never come back? What's it going to be?" Without a moment's hesitation, I replied firmly, "No, I'm leaving." My mother-in-law seemed momentarily taken aback, as if she had expected me to beg for her acceptance. Instead, she threw out another challenge. "Listen, if you pay for everyone's meal here, I'll accept you as part of James's family. You must be upset about being treated like a stranger, so pay up and become family." I had already made my decision. "I told you I'm leaving. Why should I pay for someone else's family meal?" I shot back, stating to leave. In response, my mother-in-law slammed her hand on the table, shouting, "Don't you understand? I'm trying to make you part of the family. Are you okay with being the stranger? Pay up." "No, I'm fine being a stranger, and since I am one, I'm not paying for your meal. Goodbye." I walked away swiftly, but she tried to catch up to me. By the time she reached the door of the room, I was already at the exit. Once home, I considered emailing my husband about the incident when he returned just 15 minutes later. "The reservation was correct, and my mom is causing a scene," he explained after learning the truth from his brother. "I heard everything from my brother. I'm sorry you had to go through that," he added, his tone filled with concern. "You came back quickly," I remarked, relieved but still distressed by the events. "It seemed like she would have caused a scene whether you stayed or left." "How could I sit with them after they insulted you?" he replied, his understanding of the situation reassuring me. This confrontation seemed to have a ripple effect. It appeared to awaken a realization among my husband's brothers' wives who had previously felt they had to silently endure such treatment. Inspired by my stand against my mother-in-law's attitude, they too began to assert themselves. Soon after, they left the restaurant with their husbands. Predictably, my mother-in-law didn't take this well. Within hours, my phone began ringing incessantly with her calls. Despite my attempts to ignore them, the constant ringing forced me to block her number. Unfortunately, the quiet didn't last long. I received a call from an unknown number, and the voice on the other end introduced himself as a police officer from a nearby station. "Hi, sorry for calling so late. Is this Emma's phone?" he asked. He then explained that after everyone had left the restaurant, My mother-in-law had attempted to dine alone but insisted that I should cover the bill. When the restaurant staff refused her request to defer payment, believing I wouldn't return after my angry departure, she found herself in a difficult situation. The restaurant suggested she pay with a card, but she had neither a credit card nor enough cash to cover the costs of everyone's meals. After trying to reach out to other family members for help, her frustration escalated quickly. She began yelling, blaming me for her predicament, and in her rage, she started damaging the restaurant's property, including expensive vases and flower pots. This commotion led the staff to call the police. Despite the officers' attempts to calm her down, she insisted on her innocence and continued her tirade. Now the restaurant faced not only an unpaid bill but also the aftermath of my mother-in-law's outburst. They requested that someone take her home. Feeling somewhat responsible after hearing the officer's account, my husband and I reluctantly headed back to the restaurant. Upon our arrival, we found the police still trying to soothe my mother-in-law. With her arms crossed, she glared at me and burst out, "You're useless. This happened because you didn't pay the bill. It's only right to help your mother. Pay up now." I was stunned by her audacity, especially in the presence of law enforcement. The officer then informed us that if no one was willing to take her home, they would have to detain her for causing a disturbance and damaging property. The situation had spiraled far beyond a simple family disagreement, highlighting the severe consequences of her unchecked behavior. Faced with the prospect of the police either driving her to her house or arresting her for not settling the restaurant bill, I firmly replied, "Take her away. Arrest her or whatever. Just make her take responsibility." My mother-in-law looked at me in disbelief. "How can you say something so heartless? I can't believe it. Just pay the bill. It's not good to have a family member arrested," she pleaded. "I don't care. I'm not family, and I don't want to be around someone who acts crazy and causes trouble," I retorted, ready to leave the restaurant and let the authorities handle the situation. My husband, who had remained silent until now, gave me a stern look. "I know what happened to Emma was wrong, but is it worth getting arrested over?" he asked. "That's not the point," I replied, exasperated. "She's in trouble because she didn't pay the bill and caused a scene. It has nothing to do with me. Are you saying it's my fault for not paying for 5 people's meals when I didn't even eat?" My husband didn't respond but walked past me to speak with the police and restaurant staff. I sensed what he was about to do, and in a last-ditch effort to assert my stance, I prepared to voice my thoughts once more. I called out to him, "If you pay for her meal and bail her out, we're getting divorced. Think about that." However, he continued without a word, pulling out his wallet. Defeated, I sighed and left the restaurant. I walked home, packed my things, and prepared to leave. Just before the day ended, my husband returned looking worn out. "Mom's not getting arrested. It turns out she was wrong. The restaurant agreed to forgive her if I came back and promised she wouldn't return," he explained. "I hadn't brought enough money, so I called my brothers for help." As he recounted the details of his day, I remained unmoved, barely reacting to his words. Noticing the bags I was packing, he asked, bewildered, "What's with the bags?" "I'm getting ready to leave because we're getting divorced. I told you if you took her side, we'd get divorced. You can't pretend you didn't hear me," I said firmly, packing my things while he looked on in surprise. Then he raised his voice, "What's going on? You've been acting weird all day. I know Mom did something bad, but why do we have to get divorced? I already told you I'm being mistreated. Even when you see proof and hear others talk about it, you still choose your almost arrested mom over me. Is it weird that I want to divorce someone like that? I've had enough." Exhausted from having to defend my decision yet again, I packed faster, determined to leave. My husband continued to speak, his voice filled with confusion and distress, not fully grasping the depth of the rift between us. Having resolved to move on from our tumultuous relationship, I quickly prepared to leave and gather the necessary paperwork for a divorce. The next morning, I signed the divorce papers. Though my husband was reluctant to end our marriage, he ultimately signed them too when faced with the prospect of legal action. I submitted them without delay, finally ready to embrace my independence. Soon after our separation, my husband moved out and returned to his parents' home. Having relied on me for most household chores, he struggled to maintain a tidy living space. Frustrated by the mess, he decided to cancel his apartment lease and move back in with his parents. His brothers followed suit after he reached out for financial assistance to repay the restaurant bill. This led to significant conflicts with their wives, who protested that they shouldn't have to pay for a debacle they hadn't caused. The brothers, siding with their mother, used their own money to help without consulting their spouses, deepening the rift and leading to accusations of being unreasonable and fears of legal consequences. Their dismissive attitudes toward their wives caused rapid deterioration in their marriages. Facing similar disputes, the brothers too returned to their parents' home, lamenting their struggles to manage their households. This entire saga turned my mother-in-law and her sons into the talk of the neighborhood. Rumors spread that the brothers had been abandoned by their wives. My mother-in-law dismissed such talk as nonsense and tried to paint us as ungrateful and undutiful. The estranged husbands echoed her sentiments, smugly blaming the failed marriages on their wives while feeling confident that divorcing was the right choice. Fortunately, I had maintained strong relationships with my neighbors who saw through these narratives. My mother-in-law gained an unfavorable reputation for her poor parenting, having failed to instill proper values or independence in her sons. Meanwhile, the husbands were now seen as mama's boys, notorious for prioritizing their mother over their spouses. This entire situation highlighted the underlying issues within the family and reinforced the community's perception of the true dynamics at play. Despite attempts from my exasperated mother-in-law and the husbands to reconnect, I had already changed my contact information and relocated to a new area, effectively disappearing from their radar. They likely continued to grumble about losing contact, but for me, the absence of my mother-in-law's stressful presence is a tremendous relief. In this new chapter of my life, making new friends has been incredibly transformative. During the process of my divorce, I forged strong bonds with the ex-wives of my husband's brothers. United by our mutual frustrations with the matriarch of their family, we found solace and camaraderie in each other's company. Now we frequently spend time together, enjoying meals out, shopping, and relaxing on weekends. Interestingly, I might owe a nod of gratitude to my ex-husband for inadvertently introducing me to such wonderful people. It feels liberating to pursue our interests without interference. The simplicity of this newfound freedom is refreshing, allowing us to live our lives on our own terms, far removed from the negative influences of people like my former mother-in-law. I'm immensely thankful for these friendships. Without this supportive group, I might still be navigating solitude, but they have brought joy and companionship into my life, and I'm hopeful that our bonds will last a lifetime. Lennox will share how I took control of my life and ended my husband Calloway's manipulative hold over me. For privacy, I'll be using fake names since it's important to remain anonymous, especially as a well-known lawyer in my state. I won't delve into all the details of how Calloway and I met, fell in love, and eventually divorced. What matters is that our love was never truly mutual. Calloway was unfaithful, and the signs were always there. He distanced himself, spent long hours away, and often went on business trips. Even though I had a successful career as a lawyer, Calloway always saw me as a failure simply because I didn't earn as much as him. One day, during one of his many trips, I made the decision to investigate. I found an old laptop of his and discovered a hidden Facebook account, which confirmed my worst fears. He was having an affair with a beautiful woman he clearly considered more attractive than me. Calloway constantly criticized my appearance, and it crushed me to realize he had chosen someone else. Angry and heartbroken, I confronted him the moment he returned. "Calloway, are you cheating on me? I have proof," I demanded. His response was cold, almost cruel. "Lennox, you just aren't interesting to me anymore. You're always wrapped up in your pointless cases, ignoring me. And let's be honest, you're not exactly a supermodel," he sneered. Stunned, I shot back, "What are you even talking about? I have a demanding job, and you knew that when we got married. I haven't ignored you. It's you who stopped coming home. You shut me out." That's how I uncovered the truth. But instead of guilt or regret, Calloway's heartless response left me speechless. He twisted everything, making it seem as though his infidelity was somehow my fault. A ridiculous claim I wasn't going to let him get away with. Rather than defend himself, Calloway's tone turned even colder. He smirked and said, "I'm glad you found out, Lennox. Now I don't have to hide her anymore. She's gorgeous, and we're going to have a perfect life together after I divorce you. Finally, I can marry someone worthy of my name." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. A chill ran down my spine as I realized he had been planning this all along. Worse, he was openly insulting me, praising this other woman as if she were the better choice. There was no apology, no remorse, only arrogance. He acted as though it meant nothing to him. Tears streamed down my face as he continued to boast about how he was going to leave me. This was the man I had loved for over a decade, and his cruel words shattered my heart. Through my sobs, I asked, "How could you say that, Calloway? After all these years?" "I've stood by you through everything," I said, my voice shaking with a mixture of anger and hurt. "I honored our vows and put you first, always. How could you do this?" Calloway's expression remained cold and dismissive. "It doesn't matter anymore, Lennox. You're just not right for me. I'm a successful business owner now, and I need someone who matches my status. A woman with average looks and a law degree that impresses no one just isn't good enough for me." Humiliated, I felt my chest tighten, but I refused to stay silent. "How could you say that, Calloway? I may not fit your shallow definition of beauty, but I'm a strong, capable woman. I've been a good wife to you, and now you're throwing me away." Without hesitation, he cut me off, his voice cold as steel. "I'm not considering divorce, Lennox. I've already decided. I hired a top lawyer, and the papers are ready. I'll be filing soon. You better pack your things and leave before I get back. I don't want to see your face around here anymore." A few hours later, one of Calloway's friends arrived at my door with a stack of papers in hand. His eyes held a flicker of sympathy as he passed them to me. I took the papers, closed the door, and collapsed to the floor. The weight of everything crashed down on me, and I sobbed uncontrollably for what felt like hours, realizing I had wasted years of my life on a man who never truly loved me. But as my tears dried, something shifted inside me. I wasn't going to let this defeat me. I was stronger than this, and I was going to prove it, to him and to myself. Before the man left, he let something slip. Calloway was planning to drag out the divorce. At first, I was confused, but then it hit me, the prenuptial agreement. If Calloway cheated, I was entitled to half of his business. In my emotional state, I had forgotten all about it. Now, it all made sense. He wanted to prolong the process, hoping I'd give up and walk away without claiming what was rightfully mine. That wasn't going to happen. I immediately reached out to his lawyer and scheduled a meeting. Within 2 days, I was ready to fight back, and I wasn't leaving without everything I deserved. I moved out of Calloway's house and returned to my childhood home, which was still in my name. Once everything was packed, I sent him a message. "I've moved all my things out of your house. Don't worry, I took my ugly face and body out of your sight." His response came quickly, dripping with arrogance. "Good. My lawyer is the best, so don't expect much from this fight." But I stayed calm. "I'm not giving up my share of the business. Keep your distance from me, Calloway." I was done letting him manipulate me. This time, I would stand my ground and make sure he didn't get away with taking what was mine. I was ready for whatever battles lay ahead. His next text only fueled my determination. "I don't want to talk to you anymore. Speak to me through my lawyer from now on, and make sure you stay out of my house." The disrespect and condescension in his words sparked a fire deep inside me. It's funny how rage and betrayal can give you strength. Suddenly, everything became crystal clear. I almost laughed. Calloway had no idea who he was messing with. Neither did his lawyer, Jake. I arranged to meet Jake at a local cafe. When I arrived, I saw the moment he recognized me. His composure faltered and his hands trembled slightly. Though he tried to act professional, it was obvious that Calloway had not prepared him to face someone like me. Jake forced a nervous smile as we greeted each other, and I decided to ease the tension. It wasn't his fault I was caught up in this mess. "Hello, Jake. Nice to see you," I said pleasantly, watching the surprise flicker across his face. "Ma'am, I wasn't expecting you to come in person," he stammered, clearly unsettled. "The last names probably threw you off," I replied smoothly. "I got married after becoming a lawyer. I use my maiden name for work." "Oh, I see," Jake muttered, shifting in his seat, still visibly uncomfortable. "Let's not dance around it, Jake," I said, leaning in slightly. "Your client told you to drag this case out, didn't he?" He squirmed under my steady gaze, unsure how to respond. I decided to give him a way out. "You don't have to answer that. I've been married to Calloway for over a decade. I know exactly how his mind works." Jake fidgeted, trying to maintain his composure, but my words clearly hit home. Years of experience as a lawyer had taught me how to put pressure on opponents, and Jake was no exception. I wasn't here to intimidate him, though, just to make it clear that I wasn't someone to be underestimated. I leaned in slightly and gave Jake a reassuring smile. Look, Jake, I know none of this is your fault, so let me explain what's really going on with this divorce. He blinked, looking confused. What do you mean, ma'am? He asked, clearly not expecting what was coming next. Did Calloway happen to mention that he cheated on me? I asked, watching his face closely. His expression shifted, and I could see the truth dawn on him. He had no idea. No, he didn't mention anything about that, Jake admitted, flustered, but he did say you might try to make some wild claims to ruin him. I shook my head, giving him a sympathetic smile. Oh, Jake, Calloway played you, but hey, you'll be happy to know he really thinks you're one of the best lawyers out there. He has a lot of faith in you. Jake's smile was uncertain. That's kind of him to say, he murmured, clearly overwhelmed. But I'll never measure up to you, ma'am. I wish he had told me you were a lawyer too. He only said you worked at a firm. I rolled my eyes. Typical Calloway. He never appreciated my achievements. He always looked down on my work and never took me seriously. I paused, letting that sink in before adding, but I was smart enough to make sure we had a prenuptial agreement. Jake's eyes widened, clearly caught off guard. The word prenup hit him like a ton of bricks. He fidgeted in his seat, scrambling to process what I'd just revealed. There's a prenup in this marriage, he stammered, looking almost panicked. Your husband didn't mention that. Do you have any proof, ma'am? I gave him a calm, confident smile. Oh, I have all the proof you need. I pulled a folder from my bag and placed it gently on the table between us. I brought the documents with me. I figured Calloway would try to wriggle out of the consequences, but not on my watch. Jake swallowed hard, his hands visibly trembling as he reached for the folder. I'd really like to see those papers, ma'am, he said nervously. I'll need proof of the affair if you have any, Jake said, his voice cautious. Don't worry, I replied smoothly, opening my bag. I've got everything right here. I handed him all the evidence, messages, photos, legal documents. Everything was meticulously organized and ready. Jake took his time, reviewing each piece carefully. As he examined the evidence, I watched the defeat settle into his expression. He knew there was no way Calloway could come out of this unscathed. After what felt like an eternity, Jake looked up at me, resigned. You have solid proof of everything, ma'am, he admitted. I had no idea about any of this. I figured as much, I said, keeping my tone even. I know how hard it is to deal with clients who aren't being honest, especially when the other side has a strong lawyer. You're right about that, ma'am, Jake sighed, clearly weighed down by the reality of the situation. I think that's all we need to discuss for now. I'll have to have a serious talk with my client before we proceed. Someone will be in touch, though I can't promise it'll be me. I knew what he was hinting at, but I didn't comment. Instead, I thanked him for his time and left the cafe. As I walked out, I felt an immense weight lift off my shoulders. The sadness that had once consumed me was now replaced by a fierce determination. I went straight to work, preparing my own set of documents for the divorce. Calloway had created this mess, and now he was going to face the consequences. There was no escaping what was coming. The very next day, Calloway broke the silence. Despite instructing him to contact me only through his lawyer, he called me directly. His voice was furious when I answered. What did you say to my lawyer, Lennox? He barked. I couldn't help but smile. Oh, look who's calling me after telling me to stay away. What happened with your lawyer, Calloway? Stop messing around, Lennox. Tell me what you said to him that made him quit today. Your lawyer quit today? How unfortunate, I said, dripping with sarcasm. That's really too bad, Calloway. I guess you should have been honest about what you're up against, Calloway. You don't know what you're talking about, he spat. You're a nobody. I won't let you take my family business. Oh, I'd love to see you try, I replied, my voice steady. I'll hire a better lawyer than you ever could, and when we're done, you'll be the one begging me for mercy. Well, good luck with that, Calloway, I said calmly. Just a word of advice. Make sure you tell your new lawyer about the affair and the prenup. There was a pause, then the sharp click of him hanging up. I couldn't help but chuckle. He was in way over his head, and he didn't even know it yet. Calloway tried to find another lawyer, but word travels fast. My reputation in town was solid, and no decent lawyer wanted to be caught in his sinking ship. Anyone who entertained his lies would be swiftly dismantled once I laid out the evidence. He had promised to make me beg for mercy, but I knew it was only a matter of time before the tables turned. And I was right. One morning, as I was getting ready for work, a knock at the door interrupted me. It was early, and I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, there he was, Calloway, looking exhausted and utterly defeated. For a moment, I just stared at him, debating whether to send him away. But I let him in. I didn't want a scene outside my house. I had enough on my plate as it was. The moment the door closed behind him, I didn't bother with pleasantries. Make it quick, Calloway. I don't have time to waste on you. And frankly, I have no idea why you're even here. We were supposed to handle everything through our lawyers. Yeah, about that, he mumbled, eyes downcast, clearly embarrassed. I haven't been able to find a good divorce lawyer yet, Calloway admitted, looking defeated. Oh, that's unfortunate, I said with mock sympathy. You'd better hurry. I hear Callista's been dying to marry you. I'm not worried about her anymore, Calloway muttered, shaking his head. Listen, Lennox, we need to talk. You've been sabotaging my chances with every lawyer. It's unfair. I burst out laughing, genuinely amused by his audacity. Sabotaging you? Oh, Calloway, that's rich. The fact that you even think that just shows how little you respect me or my profession. You thought you could throw money at people and they'd fall at your feet, didn't you? His face twisted with frustration. I don't get it. What did I even do wrong? I crossed my arms and stared him down. Should I remind you? You lied to your lawyers about the affair, about the prenup. That's enough to embarrass any lawyer in court. No one wants to represent a client they can't trust, Calloway. And if you haven't realized by now, my name carries weight in this town. You might think I'm nothing, but I've built a reputation, a solid one. Calloway slumped, his shoulders sagging under the weight of realization. I know that now, Lennox, he said quietly, regret dripping from his voice. I tried being honest with a few lawyers, but none of them are willing to take my case. Well, that's what happens when you're up against an ironclad prenup, I said coldly. You should have thought twice before you cheated. But it's too late now. No sane lawyer is going to take your side, and you will give me half of your business. His face fell, and I could see the panic in his eyes. The business was the only thing he truly cared about. That's why he tried to hire the best lawyer he could, to drag this divorce out and exhaust me into giving up my claim. But now, after days of rejection, even he knew the game was over. Then, as if it were his last resort, Calloway did something I never expected. He started to cry. Please, Lennox, he begged, his voice cracking. You know how much this business means to me. Don't take it. Take everything else, just not the business. Why not, Calloway? I asked, my voice sharp. You were the one who insisted on putting that clause in the prenup, the one that says I get half if you cheat. You wrote your own fate. After everything you've done, do you really think I'm going to walk away empty-handed? I deserve this. It was a mistake, Lennox, he whispered, tears streaming down his face. I swear, the affair was a huge mistake, Calloway pleaded. I've even put the relationship on hold because I realized how wrong it was. Maybe we can give our marriage another shot. I'm sure we can make it work. I let out a loud, incredulous laugh. The audacity of this man was astounding. He was actually asking me to reconcile, as if I would be foolish enough to even consider it. I had heard the rumors that things between him and Callista weren't going well. Apparently, she was upset, and Calloway was unhappy too. But if he thought that was enough to win me back, he was out of his mind. I had learned my lesson the hard way. Marrying Calloway was a colossal mistake, and I wasn't about to make it again. I knew exactly why he was suddenly so desperate to get me back. You must be delusional if you think I'd even consider it, Calloway. Do you think I'm stupid? I know you want me back just to avoid splitting your business. Lennox, we were happy once. Can't we just look past this mistake and start over? I'll cut off Callista, I swear, he begged, trying to sound sincere. There's no need for that, Calloway, I replied, shaking my head. That woman will be gone the minute she finds out you won't be rich anymore after the divorce. As for me, this is my golden opportunity to walk away from this sham of a marriage. I'm actually grateful you showed me your true colors before we ever had kids. Now you're going to deal with the consequences of your actions. I was done. There was nothing left to say. Calloway continued to plead, trying to convince me not to take his business, but his desperate cries only reminded me of the countless nights I had cried myself to sleep because of his betrayal. Seeing him in such a pathetic state filled me with a sense of satisfaction. My revenge was complete. All I wanted now was a clean break to start fresh, and I got more than I expected. Karma hit Calloway hard and fast. For weeks, he tried everything to change my mind, begging me to come back home, but I ignored it all. I wasn't interested in his drama. I was ready to move on. Since he had already filed for divorce, I hired someone from my firm to represent me. I wasn't a divorce lawyer and wanted as little interaction with him as possible. After a month of futile attempts to win me back, Calloway realized he had no choice. He was forced to hire a lawyer and agree to a clean break. He knew that if this went to court, he'd be publicly humiliated and waste even more money on legal fees. So he conceded to a mutual divorce. Thanks to the prenup, it was easy for me to get the settlement I deserved. I had ample proof of Calloway's infidelity, and as the prenup stated, he had to give me half of his business. Of course, he wasn't happy about it, but there was no way out. Reluctantly, he signed over half of his company to me. We even offered him a chance to buy me out, but he had no money left. You might wonder how a big business owner like Calloway ended up broke. It's simple. He spent it all on Callista. The irony was delicious. She wasn't taking his calls or texts anymore. As she figured out he wouldn't be wealthy after the divorce, and now no one else was willing to date her either. Her reputation as a gold digger had spread far and wide. What goes around comes around, right? But Callista was the least of Calloway's problems. With half of his business gone, his income was slashed. He couldn't afford to maintain his lavish mansion or even keep up with the mortgage, so he was forced to sell it. Now, he was renting a condo, a serious downgrade from the luxurious life he once had. He even tried to get back with me again, hoping to regain control of his business. But that was never going to happen. He would have to figure out a way to keep things afloat or save enough money to buy me out. As for me, I was thriving. I hired someone to manage my share of Calloway's business, and everything was running smoothly. With the extra income from both the business and my law practice, I upgraded my lifestyle and bought myself a new mansion. I was living my best life, and honestly, I couldn't be happier. The divorce worked out perfectly for me. Instead of being played by Calloway and his Callista, I ended up turning the tables, ruining their lives and bettering my own. I'm Jane, and I had just turned 28 when I thought I had met the love of my life, Mike. Everything unfolded so quickly. We were married within a year of our first meeting. Mike, an accountant with a tall frame and a laugh that could brighten any room, complemented my career in digital marketing. I love painting on weekends and have always been a planner. We seemed to balance each other perfectly, or so I thought. The day after our wedding, our living room was a delightful mess, overflowing with wrapped gifts and cards. A beautiful chaos that reflected our celebration. Just then, Mike's parents, Carol and Dave, unexpectedly dropped by. I hadn't had much chance to get to know them since our wedding had come together so fast, but they appeared perfectly normal. As we began to open gifts, I noticed Carol and Dave were more than a little curious about what we were unwrapping. "Is that a crystal vase?" Carol asked, picking up a shimmering piece that my Aunt Linda had given us. She turned it over in her hands, her eyes sparkling with interest. "Yeah, it's from my Aunt Linda. Pretty, isn't it?" I replied, hoping to steer her attention away from claiming it. But before I knew it, Carol had set the vase aside in a separate pile. "I think we can find a good place for this at our house," she said casually. Mike, engrossed in untangling a set of fancy kitchen gadgets from his cousin, didn't seem to notice. I shot him a pleading look, hoping he would intervene. "Mom, that's our wedding gift," Mike finally said with an easy smile, as if it were all a big joke. "Oh, come on, it'll just gather dust here. We'll use it," Dave chimed in, wrapping an arm around Carol. "Besides, you two are young. You'll get plenty more gifts over the years." I tried to laugh along, but it felt off. "Actually, I think it would look great in our foyer," I said, attempting to reclaim it without making a scene. Carol glanced at me, her expression a mix of surprise and annoyance. "Jane, you need to learn to share. We're family now, and families help each other out," she said firmly, as if imparting some kind of lesson. Catching the rising tension, Mike quickly jumped in. "Let's not worry about this now. We've got plenty of gifts, right, Jane?" I nodded, biting back my frustration. Yet as they continued to sift through the gifts, setting aside a few choice items for themselves, that uncomfortable feeling settled deeper in my stomach. It felt like I was watching strangers claim pieces of my life as their own, and Mike simply let it happen. Our first year of marriage flew by, and before I knew it, our anniversary had arrived. I wanted to make it special, a true celebration of us. So I booked a table at Chez Louis, a cozy little spot we both loved. I thought it would be romantic to invite Mike's parents to join us, wanting to show them they were important to us. When we arrived at the restaurant, Carol and Dave were already seated, menus in hand. "This place is fancy," Carol remarked, eyeing the chandeliers above. Mike squeezed my hand under the table, a silent thank you for organizing the evening. As the waiter approached, I ordered salmon, Mike's favorite, and noticed Carol's eyes scanning the menu for the most expensive items. "We'll have the lobster in the filet mignon," she declared, pointing at the priciest options without a second thought. "Why not throw in a bottle of your best wine?" Dave added, winking at the waiter. I felt my smile stiffen. "Quite the celebration, huh?" I tried to keep my tone light. "It's a special night," Mike said with a shrug. "Let's not think about the cost." While the conversation was generally light-hearted, I couldn't shake the feeling that Carol and Dave were indulging like it was their last meal, almost oblivious to the hefty bill that would soon arrive. As we ate, I was consumed by a sense of being taken advantage of. It wasn't about the money, not really, it was the principle. This was our anniversary, and it felt as if it was being hijacked. When the check finally came, I braced myself for the awkward moment ahead. I noticed Mike's eyes widen for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure and handed his card to the waiter. As we left the restaurant, Carol linked her arm through mine. "You know, Jane, this was lovely. We should do it again next year," she said, a satisfied smile on her face. With Thanksgiving approaching, the holiday season was just around the corner. Mike and I had started decorating our home, blending warm fall colors with early Christmas cheer. It felt cozy, like a place you'd want to return to after a long day. One evening, while we were stringing lights around the living room windows, Mike's phone pinged with a message. He read it and chuckled. "Oh, my parents are ahead of the game. They've already sent their Christmas wish list." I paused, untangling a set of lights, and looked up. "A wish list?" "Yeah, they send one every year. It helps with shopping," he explained, scrolling through his phone. Curiosity got the best of me. "So, what's on this famous list?" Mike hesitated for a moment before handing me his phone. The list was extensive, top-tier electronics, designer clothes, luxury items that seemed completely unnecessary. I scrolled through in disbelief. "They can't be serious," I exclaimed. "This is a lot." Taking back his phone, Mike shrugged. "They like the good stuff. What can I say?" I was at a loss for words. A knot formed in the pit of my stomach. Mike's birthday was also approaching, and I had been eagerly planning to gift him the watch he had been eyeing for months. Now, it felt as if any gift I gave would be overshadowed by this extravagant list. When it came to making our own lists, I couldn't shake the feeling of pettiness. "Maybe we should just ask for charitable donations in our name," I suggested half-heartedly. Mike laughed. "Good one. But seriously, what do you want? You need a new laptop, right?" As the holidays rolled around, I bought Carol and Dave a nice coffee maker, not too fancy but practical. In return, they gave me a set of scented candles. They were lovely, but the contrast was stark. I didn't say anything. Mike seemed pleased with the expensive drone they gifted him, but the unspoken rule was clear. We were expected to give lavishly and receive modestly. It didn't feel right, but I held my tongue, wrapping gifts and plastering a smile on my face for the holidays. Inside, though, I began to tally the costs, not just in dollars, but in the emotional toll it was taking on me. One day, while staring at my computer screen at work, an email notification popped up. It was my quarterly bonus, bigger than I had anticipated. My first thought was to do something meaningful with it, something for Mike and me. So I booked us a trip to Paris. We had talked about going since we met, and it felt like the perfect moment to make that dream a reality. That night, as we sat down for dinner, I couldn't wait to share the news. I excitedly told Mike about the surprise trip, and his face lit up in a way I had never seen before. "Paris? Really, babe? That's amazing," he exclaimed, jumping up to kiss me. I was basking in the joy of the moment when his phone rang. It was his mom. I could see the change in his expression immediately. Yeah, she booked us a trip to Paris, he said into the phone, and I instantly regretted not asking him to keep it quiet for a little while longer. As he listened, his enthusiasm slowly waned. I know, you've always wanted to go. He trailed off, looking at me with a pained expression. My heart sank. After hanging up, a heavy silence enveloped us. They want to come with us, he said finally, almost as if seeking my approval. I froze, my fork hovering midair. To Paris with us? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Yeah, they said they've never been and have always wanted to go, Mike explained, running a hand through his hair. I think we should take them. Suddenly, the room felt too small. It's supposed to be for us, Mike, our trip, I said, feeling the tightness in my chest. He didn't respond right away. I know, but they're getting older, and I feel bad. They've done so much for me. I thought about all the one-sided gift exchanges, the anniversary dinners, and every little thing that had accumulated over the past year. But this is our time, I insisted, my voice firm. We can plan a trip with them another time. This bonus is for us. Mike let out a deep, frustrated sigh. They won't understand that. You know how they are. And you know how hard I've worked for this. I spoke the words like stones lodged in my throat. I want us to enjoy it together, just us, like we planned. After a moment of silence, he finally relented. Okay, we'll tell them some other time might work better. But when the moment came to break the news, Mike hesitated. Look, maybe we can all go together next year, he suggested, but Carol was having none of it. Why next year? We can afford it now, she retorted over the speakerphone, her voice tinged with disappointment. I could no longer hold back my frustration. Because this trip is for us, Carol. Mike and I need this time together, I said, my voice rising. There was a pause before she replied, well, that's very selfish of you, Jane. Very selfish indeed. After the call, the air between Mike and me was thick with tension. I could tell he was torn, but I was resolute. Paris was meant to be a dream trip for just the two of us, and I wouldn't let that dream slip away. In the following days, Mike became a shadow in his own home, leaving early for work and returning late. Our conversations dwindled to monosyllables. Dinner's in the oven, I would call out when I heard the garage door open, my voice echoing off the empty walls. Thanks, he'd reply, the word hanging between us like a ghost. I missed him, missed us. I longed for the easy days when we would dream together on the couch, our plans and laughter intertwined. I yearned to reach out to him, to break through the invisible barrier that had formed after our argument about Paris. But every attempt felt like trying to speak through thick glass. I could see him, but I couldn't connect. One particularly difficult evening, I found myself sitting across from Mike at the dinner table, the sound of his fork scraping against the plate cutting through the heavy silence. I cleared my throat. Mike, this can't go on, I began, my voice barely above a whisper, fearful of shattering the fragile peace between us. We need to talk about what happened. We can't let this silence become our new normal. Mike continued eating, his expression unreadable, until he finally set down his fork. It was a sign I had his attention, even if just for a moment. What do you want me to say, Jane? He asked, a hint of wariness seeping through his words. I want to understand why you're taking this so hard. It feels like you're choosing them over me, I replied, hurt evident in my tone. He sighed, folding his hands in front of him. They're my parents, Jane. They've always dreamed of going to Paris. And what about our dreams? I pressed, frustration bubbling up inside me. What about our plans? Mike ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of exasperation that had become all too familiar. I know, he said, and for a brief moment, I caught a glimpse of the man I married, conflicted and torn, but not indifferent. It's just, they've always been there for me. I feel obligated. But where does that leave us, Mike? I leaned forward, desperate to catch his eye. What about our marriage? He hesitated, and in that pause, fear washed over me. What if we weren't as solid as I had believed? What if the foundation we built was more like sand, easily eroded by the tide of his parents' needs? It's supposed to be us against the world, Mike, not me against you and them, I said quietly, my voice steady despite the emotions swelling inside me. He looked at me, really looked at me, and I could see the conflict warring within him. I know, Jane. I just don't know how to make everyone happy. And then it hit me with sudden clarity. That's just it. We can't always make everyone happy, but we made vows to each other, Mike. Doesn't that count for something? He nodded slowly, his gaze lingering on the table before finally meeting mine. It does. It counts for a lot. The rest of the meal passed in contemplative silence, a welcome change from the strained quiet that had become our norm. It felt as if my words had planted a seed, or perhaps nurtured one that had been dormant within Mike all along. As the morning sun poured in through the windows, I noticed that the warmth it usually brought seemed to have no place in our home today. I woke up to an eerie stillness. The other side of the bed lay untouched from the night before, and the emptiness of the house felt like a heavy blanket suffocating in its silence. Rubbing the sleep from my eyes, I reached for my phone, expecting the usual void of messages that had taken residence in our home. Instead, my screen lit up with a flood of notifications, each one from my bank. A lump formed in my throat as I scanned the details. Multiple transactions, including airline tickets and hotel bookings in Paris, all made while I was asleep. The timestamps on the emails revealed that the flight had left hours ago. Mike and his parents were already on their way to Paris, using my hard-earned bonus to fund a trip I was meant to be on. Disbelief morphed into anger, and then a crushing sense of betrayal settled in. I sat there, the phone heavy in my hand, as the reality sank in. Mike had access to my account. I had trusted him implicitly, never imagining he would betray that trust. Yet here it was, stark in black and white, a digital paper trail of deceit. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The one person I had believed would stand by me had chosen his own comfort over our relationship. Memories flooded back, reminding me of all the little signs I had brushed aside, all the excuses I had made for him and for us. With trembling fingers, I dialed his number, fully aware he wouldn't answer, not with the time difference and not with my previous ultimatum ringing in his ears. "Mike," I began, only to be met by the cheerful beep of his voicemail, which felt almost mocking. "I saw the charges. You took your parents to Paris with my bonus. I don't even know what to say, but I hope it's worth it. I hope it's worth everything." The house felt even emptier after the call, the walls closing in on me under the weight of everything left unsaid, and now perhaps never to be spoken. I sat at the kitchen table, the silence a stark contrast to the chaos raging within me. They had left just like that, with no regard for me or the life we were supposed to be building together. I canceled the hotel rooms and the return flights, severing every piece of the trip tied to my finances. With each cancellation, I felt fragments of my old life slipping away, the future I had envisioned evaporating before my eyes. By the time I finished, there was nothing left to do but act. I contacted the bank and revoked Mike's access to my accounts, feeling the terrifying yet liberating finality with each click. The man I had married, the family I had tried to be a part of, they were all strangers now. Strangers who had used me, seeing my generosity as something to exploit rather than cherish. I packed my bags with a robotic efficiency, each item a reminder of a dream I had to put away. There was no going back from this. No gentle words or apologies could mend the rift his betrayal had caused. Mike had chosen his path, and in doing so, he had set me on mine. The ring I had once worn with pride lay cold and heavy in my palm. I set it down on the counter, its sparkle mocking me in the morning light. With one last look at the life I was leaving behind, I closed the door on the house that had never truly felt like home. It was late afternoon when I finally drove away, my car packed with clothes and essentials, a stark reminder of the sudden turn my life had taken. As I hit the road, messages began to flood in, one from Mike, several from his mother. I pulled over to read the messages, knowing they would only fuel my resolve. Mike's message flashed on the screen. "Jane, please, we need to talk about this. Can't we just discuss it?" The simplicity of his words felt almost insulting. I started to type a response but stopped, realizing that no words could bridge the chasm between us. His mother's messages were a confusing mix of anger and concern. "What's going on? Why have you canceled our rooms? Call me." I could picture her sitting in a Paris cafe, expecting luxury but facing complications. Frustrated, I turned my phone off. They were in the middle of a trip funded by deceit. They could figure it out. My first stop was the bank. I needed to ensure my finances were completely secure. The bank manager, a middle-aged woman with a gentle demeanor, greeted me. "I need to make sure all my accounts are locked down. My husband won't have access anymore," I explained, my voice steady despite the emotions churning within me. "Of course," she nodded, offering a sympathetic smile. "Let's make sure you're protected." By the time I left the bank, my accounts were secure, and a new sense of determination settled within me. I drove to my sister's house, the only place I felt safe. She opened the door before I could even knock. "Jane, I've been so worried," she said, pulling me into a hug. I allowed myself a moment to be held, letting the weight of my reality be shared. "I can't believe he would do this to you," she said as we sat down at her kitchen table. "You deserve so much better." I nodded, swallowing hard against the lump in my throat. "I do, and that's why I'm not going back. I've canceled everything. I've left the house. I'm done." Sarah reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "Good for you. What's your plan now?" I looked around the familiar room, feeling the first twinges of relief. "I'm not sure yet, but I'm starting with a divorce. I can't stay married to someone who has so little respect for me." Her face was a mix of anger and pride. "I'll support you however I can. Do you need a lawyer?" "I'll find one," I said, my voice growing firmer with each word. "Need someone who doesn't know Mike or his family. I need this cut clean." The conversation shifted as Sarah helped me unpack my card and plan the next few days. There was a strange comfort in the mundane tasks, a grounding in the midst of chaos. I was standing in her kitchen, a mug of coffee warming my hands, when my phone vibrated persistently. It was Mike again. "Jane, we need to talk. I'm sorry. I miss you, and I think we can work things out." His text was a blend of apology and plea. I sighed, feeling the same rehearse "I'm sorry" becoming a threadbare blanket that offered no comfort. "Not this time, Mike," I muttered under my breath, typing a response that left no room for ambiguity. "There's nothing left to discuss. Please respect my decision." I could almost hear his desperation in the silence that followed, but it wasn't enough to make me reconsider. Not anymore. My resolve was tested further a few days later when Mike's parents made a dramatic appearance at my sister's doorstep. Their faces twisted in anger as they barged past Sarah, who stood wide-eyed at the door. "You've got some nerve, Jane," his mother exclaimed, her voice shrill. "You ruined our family vacation. You're just a greedy, selfish woman." Sarah stepped in front of me, protective. "That's enough. You're not going to come into my house and insult my sister." The argument escalated, drawing the attention of neighbors peeking out from their windows. I was sure someone would call the police. It ended with Sarah threatening to do just that if they didn't leave. The departure left a sour air that lingered long after they were gone. But amidst the chaos, a realization settled within me. I was truly done. The divorce process felt like a cold legal ballet, and I danced my part, signing papers and nodding through explanations of settlements and divisions. Yet with each stroke of the pen, I felt chains breaking and tethers loosening. And then it was over. I stood outside the courthouse, a free woman. The air was crisp, a gentle wind playing with the loose strands of my hair. Sarah held me tight, her support unwavering. "You did it, Jane," she whispered, pride evident in her voice. I had stood up to the selfishness that tried to claim me, resisting the manipulation that sought to bind me. I turned away from the courthouse, away from a past that no longer held me. The messages from Mike continued for a while, a mix of apologies, bargaining, and eventually anger. But they went unread, floating in the digital void as I moved forward with my life. The apartment I rented was small, but filled with sunlight. I decorated it with plants, books, and new memories. I went back to school, enrolling in classes that fueled a passion for learning I had neglected for too long. One quiet evening, as I sat on my little balcony with a cup of tea in hand, I deleted Mike's number from my phone. I was free to heal, free to grow, and most importantly, free to be unapologetically me.
Did the items for Jane and Hannah arrive? Starting today, we're going to be supporting them, my husband Bob declared triumphantly over the phone. I was at a loss for words due to Bob's sudden declaration. It seemed like Jane and Hannah were the only ones on his mind, with no consideration for me. I contemplated discarding such a husband. Yeah, the stuff arrived, and I just moved into a new place. I responded in a deliberately cheerful tone. "A new place?" Bob muttered, then seemed stunned. "My name is Caroline Smith, and I recently turned 50. I work in sales at a major company, and although the job comes with constant complaints and troubles from clients, it's rewarding and enjoyable. My only family is my husband Bob. We don't have children, and my parents passed away some time ago. My parents-in-law live nearby, but we aren't that close. We have a casual relationship. Bob loves dining out, often taking his sister Jane along for many outings. Jane's daughter, Hannah, always joins them. In the early stages of our marriage, I complained to Bob about him prioritizing Jane and her daughter over me. However, those feelings gradually faded. I want to repay them for the struggles I caused during my student days. After learning of Bob's sincere feelings, I understood that my in-laws are impoverished, living in a small, run-down apartment. It's incredibly cramped. Bob diligently pursued his studies, but he didn't pass his first-choice state university, only getting accepted into private ones. His parents couldn't afford to pay, so Jane, who was working at the time, helped with his tuition. Bob seems grateful to Jane for supporting him during difficult times. After Jane got married, she quit her job to be a stay-at-home mom, limiting her financial resources. After hearing this story, I stopped complaining, understanding the reasons for wanting to give back. I thought it best to let Bob do as he pleases, despite a bit of loneliness. I'm going to go out to eat with Jane and Hannah now, Bob said. Bob is going to dine out with Jane and her daughter today as well. Have a good time, I said with a smile, seeing him off. Let's continue to live supporting each other with Bob, who values family. That's what I thought. However, the rift in our relationship happened about 3 months ago. One day, Bob approached with a serious expression, saying, "In fact, Jane's getting a divorce. She's decided to keep custody of Hannah." When I heard Jane was divorcing, I was honestly perplexed. Jane was the type of person I found difficult to deal with, going back to when I visited Bob's parents' house before we got married. Jane laughed uproariously at me, saying, "Bob, you're marrying her? She's so plain and has bad taste." Bob and his parents didn't say a word, acting like they didn't notice. So I had no choice but to endure Jane's rude behavior as I remembered Bob's declaration. "I'm going to visit home every day for a while. Unlike you, who's thick-skinned, Jane is delicate. And I'm worried about Hannah too." Bob disparaged me with a calm demeanor. However, I did not retort. Arguing with Bob here and then, having him perpetually visit his parents' house would also be a problem. "Take care." I couldn't say anything else and just saw Bob off. From then on, Bob spent more time away from home. Until now, he often came home around 8 p.m. on weekdays, but there were times when he didn't return even by the next morning. He was almost never home on weekends, and my loneliness just grew. When I returned from work and called out, there was no response at all, and the room was pitch dark. He must be at his parents' house again. With Bob's absence, I often found myself downhearted. However, when Bob was home, he began to annoy me more and more. That day, Bob was uncharacteristically at home, but he made an unthinkable request of me. "Jane told me you haven't given a housewarming gift yet. You're so stingy. You're getting a bonus soon, right? Buy her a designer bag or something," Bob said, as if I must do so. "A housewarming gift? Why do I have to give one? Why don't you do it, Bob?" I responded in kind, but Bob instantly got angry. "You married into this family, so Jane's your family too, isn't she? Don't you think it's ill-mannered not to even be able to do a simple thing like giving a gift to family?" Bob berated me. The lecture from Bob went on for about an hour. In the end, he only said, "Anyway, just make sure to give Jane and Hannah a gift before leaving the house. He's likely gone to his parents' house." "I've never received anything from Jane," I murmured quietly. A few days later, I got a call from Jane. "Hello, you heard from Bob, didn't you? You really don't think things through. Normally, you give a housewarming gift," Jane stated as if she deserved it. I got irritated at the selfish attitude, so I retaliated. "You've never done anything for us either, have you? Even at our wedding, we didn't get a gift from you." During the wedding, Jane said with a smile, "We're family, so we don't need a wedding gift, right?" and handed over an empty gift envelope. "But there's nothing inside, is there?" I asked. Even when I asked, Jane put on an innocent face. I did buy the envelope, right? I'm so nice, aren't I? Jane said with full confidence. I was at a loss for words at Jane's utter lack of common sense, and Jane had absolutely no restraint. She heartily ate the wedding meal and drank several drinks outside of the course. Even when I handed Jane the catalog gift for the guests, she complained, "Aren't there any luxurious items? If there were, I could take home several." Caroline, you really don't think things through. That was the outcome, with her complaining like that. Remembering all that, Jane replied with a scoff, "You're my brother's wife. I don't need to give you anything, do I? You're the lowest in our family hierarchy. Rather, it's only natural for you to honor me. If you understand, go buy a new designer bag quickly." I was astounded at the way Jane spoke, unable to say anything. Hannah strikes up a conversation. "Caroline, make sure you buy my bag too. It has to be the one exclusive to the Fifth Avenue store, or I won't forgive you." "Bye, Hannah," laughing loudly with a ha-ha-ha. Hung up just like that. Unbelievable. Why am I the only one who has to endure this? I heaved a big sigh. After that, Bob just stopped coming home. Whenever he did come back, he would take money from my wallet without any regard for my desperate attempts to stop him. "You're always at home, so you're not going to use the money, right? I'll use it for something worthwhile. Be grateful." Waving a few bills, Bob left the house. I couldn't take this anymore. I was becoming worn out from Bob's selfish actions. Then one day, the doorbell rang, and I opened the front door. "Hello," I said, and someone who appeared to be a mover said, "Is this the residence of Mr. Bob Smith? We'll start moving the stuff right away," and began bringing a multitude of boxes into the house. I hurriedly tried to stop him, saying, "Wait a minute, we didn't order this." However, the mover responded with a slight troubled look. "It's Mr. Bob Smith's residence, right? We received a request directly from him." Perplexed by the mover's reply, I immediately called Bob. Fortunately, Bob answered right away. In the background of the call, I could hear the crude laughter of what seemed to be Jane and Hannah. I confronted Bob. "There are movers here bringing box after box into our house. What's going on?" Then, Bob said something completely unexpected. "Oh, did the stuff for Jane and Hannah arrive? From today, we're going to be supporting them." "I don't need your opinion, got it," Bob declared triumphantly over the phone. In the background, Jane started to speak. "Welcome aboard. Since you don't have kids, you must be thrilled to take care of our Hannah, right? Be grateful." Hannah voiced her displeasure with a tinge of offense. "What? This old lady is going to be like a parent? So embarrassing. I can't tell my friends." I was at a loss for words due to Bob's sudden declaration. Surely the in-laws' house must have become too cramped, prompting Jane to plead with him. "Our house is bigger and has spare rooms." No doubt they were requested by Jane and Hannah, who knew about this. It seemed like Bob only had Jane and Hannah on his mind. There was not a shred of consideration for me. I might as well discard such a husband. I made up my mind as I remained silent. Bob continued to issue orders. Additional baggage will arrive in a week. I bought new furniture for Jane and Hannah online, so make sure to get things sorted out. We'll stay at our parents' place until then. We can't live in a room scattered with boxes. Bob said so with a laugh. Hey, isn't this too pitiful for Caroline? She has to sort out our stuff all by herself. Jane was also snickering. It's our precious belongings. Handle them with care. Hannah had the audacity to demand. I wanted to hang up this call so badly. All right. I simply said that and immediately hung up the phone. Right after hanging up the phone, I swiftly sprang into action. A week later, Bob called again. Did the additional baggage arrive? Did you tidy up the room properly? Bob probably wants to know the current state of the house. He seemed somewhat anxious. Unable to calm down, so I smiled sweetly. Yep, the stuff arrived, and I just moved into a new place. I responded in a deliberately cheerful tone. Ha, a new place. Bob muttered and then was stunned. In fact, on the day Jane and Hannah's belongings first arrived, I promptly sprang into action, and headed to a local real estate agent, directly negotiating to find a place to live. Initially, they declined, stating it was impossible, as most places require renovations before moving in or have handover procedures, meaning you can't move in on the same day. However, after checking with several agents, I was introduced to a women-only shared housing. It came with automatic locks, providing a safe environment for women to live in. The bathroom, toilet, and kitchen were shared, and electricity and gas were already set up, allowing for immediate use. Additionally, a cleaning service came regularly, making it a well-thought-out housing option. Since it was furnished, minimal luggage would not be a problem. According to the real estate agent, there was just one room available. "I'd like to see the room right away," I immediately requested from the agent. They took me to view it straight away, and just by taking one look inside the room, I decided I'll take it. When I shared this story, Bob was visibly shaken, even over the phone. "Moving out on your own is utterly unreasonable, isn't it? We're a married couple. Apologize to me right now and come home," Bob scolded me. Jane, perhaps shaken, hysterically asked, "What's happening with our room?" Hannah too yelled angrily, "Don't mess with us, old hag." When I didn't rebut, Bob said, as if he thought of something clever, "Do you think it's okay to do such a selfish thing? If we get divorced, you'll be the one in trouble, you know." "That's right. With your age and looks, you won't find another suitor in the future, right? You're just a plain old lady. Your future is looking pretty bleak. How pitiful." "Serves you right," Jane said, sounding rather pleased. In the background over the phone, Hannah was laughing and saying, "The old lady's done for." At that moment, Bob said, sounding smug, "If you apologize to us sincerely from now on, I'll forgive you. Unlike you, we're kind after all," he snorted through his nose, laughing. In the background of the call, Jane and Hannah were shouting in agreement, so I decided to set the record straight. Actually, Bob should be the one apologizing, don't you think? "I know about the affair you're having." Bob was visibly shaken. The truth is, Bob had been cheating for over 3 months. The other woman was a colleague from his workplace. "How did you find out?" "I thought I'd been utterly discreet," Bob asked, his voice trembling with fear. He must have been so sure he wouldn't get caught, so it wasn't surprising he reacted that way. Being the kind-hearted person that I am, I decided to tell him. "I hired a private investigator just in case, because you've hardly been home, right? I thought maybe you were cheating." Good thing I trusted my instincts, and since Bob stayed silent, I just kept on going. I was shocked when the PI got back to me. They finished the investigation in 3 days. "You were seeing her every day, huh? Those meals out with Jane and Hannah were only on your days off, it seems," I said, laughing. According to the PI's findings, Bob had been gallivanting around with his mistress every day after work. The money he'd likely been taking from my wallet must have been for her. Bob and his mistress were often close together, making it easy for the PI to get good pictures. "I'm going to divorce you, Bob, and I'll be demanding alimony. And, of course, from your colleague, the mistress as well. Expect a certified letter at your office." Smirking at Bob after receiving the PI's results, I headed straight to a law firm. Even the lawyers seemed rather taken aback by the conclusive evidence I presented. "How dare you?" Bob spat out, clearly irate. When a certified letter arrives at the company, even without opening it, they'll probably have a pretty good idea of what's going on. It's not just going to Bob, but to his mistress at the same company. Surely, everyone at the office will find out about their affair. "Hey, Bob, are you okay?" The situation has taken a dark turn, and Jane sounded anxious. Jane must have been planning to have Bob and me take care of life's chores for her, intending to lead a leisurely life. Jane has a long history of being a housewife, and it's unlikely she can start working now. Bob is the only one to rely on, and it can't be helped, I guess. "Bob, what are you going to do?" "I haven't worked a day since graduating from high school, and there's no way I'm doing a part-time job now." Hannah seems slightly troubled as well. Even when Jane and Hannah blame him, Bob remains silent, Unable to say anything, I delivered a further blow to Bob. Bob, you probably haven't saved any money, have you? It said in the investigation report that you've been generously spending on your mistress, even bought her the new designer handbag. Maybe you're in debt too. I dropped a bomb, and whether Bob is shaken up, he can't find the words. Ignoring him, Jane is yelling at him. What? You don't buy them for me. But why did you get them for your mistress? Are you kidding me? Plus debt? How much do you owe? I hate you, Bob. Even though I begged so much, you never bought me anything. Hannah also scolds Bob in a high-pitched voice. On the other side of the phone, Jane and Hannah are noisily complaining. Caroline, I really am sorry, so please handle these two somehow. Bob pleaded with me in an exhausted voice. But I have no intention of forgiving Bob. Why don't you deal with it yourself? I'm not involved, and it's what you deserve. Better tell your mistress soon. If you dilly-dally, a certified mail will reach your company, you know? I said to Bob with a smirk. Damn, Bob seemed frustrated. Ignoring such a Bob, I spoke. Well then, do your best, and please give me plenty of alimony. I hung up the phone right there. After hanging up, there were several calls from Bob, but I ignored them. Let Bob and Jane struggle as much as they want. I muttered quietly and set Bob's contact to block incoming calls. After that, my divorce with Bob was finalized. Initially, Bob resisted because there was dual income. Until now, Bob could afford to live even while he just messed around. With just Bob's income, maintaining the lifestyle we've had until now is certainly not feasible. It seems like Bob understands that, which is why he doesn't want to divorce me. However, I have decisive evidence of Bob's infidelity. Ultimately, I conveyed to him that I have absolutely no intention of reconciling, and that I will take legal action if he doesn't agree to the divorce any longer. With that, Bob, hanging his head down, said, I'll agree to the divorce, and stamped the divorce papers. So I demanded alimony from Bob in settlement for emotional damage from his partner. The amount was determined while being informed about the going rate from my lawyer. I believe it's a fair amount. In fact, Bob's partner paid it promptly. Apparently, she borrowed it from her parents after explaining the situation. However, it was a steep amount for Bob. Can it be reduced? Even though he said that numerous times, I ultimately rejected Bob's request during the meeting with our lawyers at the law office. How about I add on the money you stole from my wallet? I cheerfully asked. Bob turned pale as a ghost. That amount is fine. In the end, Bob, trembling, agreed. After that, both Bob and his partner resigned from their company. The reason was that their affair was exposed within the company. It seems that the delivery of a certified document brought attention to the relationship between the two. Even if the contents of the envelope were unknown, an envelope from a divorce law office tends to be pretty self-explanatory. One can generally guess what's inside. Eventually, Bob resigned because things got uncomfortable. Being the subject of juicy gossip around the office, perhaps he couldn't stand it. After leaving the company, Bob has been working in day labor via an agency. Due to his age, it seems he couldn't find another job right away. The payments won't wait. He has living expenses plus the installment payments of alimony to me, and the mortgage still has a long way to go. Moreover, the debts he likely incurred during his affair came to light. Life's probably going to be pretty tough, I bet. Sometimes I get messages from Bob through the lawyer to me. I was wrong. Please take me back. I'm begging you. I'm barely scraping by. If I'd known this would happen, I would have been nicer to Caroline, Bob says, reportedly weeping in front of the lawyer. I think he's really backed into a corner, but it's too late now. And the situation for Jane and Hannah doesn't look good either. Currently, they are living with Bob, but since Bob has no money, their living situation seems dire. One day, I got a message from Jane on my cell. I had blocked Bob's number, but I hadn't blocked Jane's. Seems like that backfired. Wondering what she could possibly want now, I answered the call. Hello, and the moment I answered, Jane begged me, please help us. We're living with Bob, but he has no money. and our electricity and gas are going to be shut off. We don't even have anything left to eat, Jane spoke in an exhausted voice. I was surprised that their living situation had become so desperate. But I had no intention of helping, so I brushed Jane off coldly. Why don't you work? You're healthy, aren't you, Jane? You used to work back in the day, right? Then Hannah, presumably next to Jane, spoke up. Caroline, isn't that harsh? You're working at a major company. You wrangled money out of Bob and his affair partner, so you must have some financial leeway, right? So you have a duty to support Mom and me. If you tell us your address, we'll come there. Take care of us. Hannah apparently has no intention of working even now. It's truly exasperating considering she's still young. Biting back a sigh, I conveyed my stance. Now that I'm divorced from Bob, I'm a complete stranger to you, Hannah. I have no intention of supporting you, and I don't want anything more to do with you. Don't call me again. As soon as I finished speaking, Hannah shouted, Don't mess with me, you old hag. You should just quietly take care of us. Tell us your address right now. After that, they kept shrieking for quite a while. Their characters will likely never change for the rest of their lives. I have nothing to do with this anymore. Goodbye. With that, I hung up the phone. I immediately blocked Jane's number. I never want to deal with them again. In their current state, they will likely face more hardship, but it's their own laziness that brought this upon them. I think it's fine if they continue to suffer. A year later, I decided to move out of the shared housing. It's a bit sad to leave where I made friends. The reason I'm leaving this fun and lively place is because I decided to adopt a dog. I met the dog at an adoption event a dog-loving friend invited me to, and I went along. That's where I had a destiny-filled encounter. While other dogs were being friendly with various people, this dog was different. It stared at me intently the moment our eyes met. I thought this dog might need me. After that, I attended the adoption events many times and deepened my bond with him. After several visits, joyfully, I was allowed to adopt him. However, the shared housing doesn't allow pets, so sadly, I had to move out. Now I live in a pet-friendly apartment. Dogs don't betray you, and it's so cute when I call. He runs towards me joyfully. There will probably be various difficulties in the future, but I'm not alone anymore. I want to move forward, facing forward, supporting each other with this beloved dog. Hey everyone, I'm Claire, and I want to share a chapter of my life that revolves around challenging relationships with my in-laws and husband. Currently navigating the complexities of a divorce, I thought it might resonate with those of you who've experienced unwarranted criticism from your in-laws. Let me take you back to how it all began. I met Zane, my now estranged husband, on a dating site when I was a 19-year-old college student. Zane, at 25, had a stable job. Despite the age gap, love blossomed between us. I've never been one to judge based on age or appearance, so Zane's age was never a concern for me. However, Zane struggled with our age difference. He often questioned, "Why are you with me, Claire? I don't understand. I'm so much older than you. You could find someone your own age who's better suited for you." Yes, I could, but I don't want to. I fell in love with you, and age doesn't matter to me. Zane, burdened by insecurities, persisted. There must be other reasons, Claire. It's not natural for someone like you to love someone like me. I wish you'd tell me the truth. I am telling you the truth. I don't want to date boys my age. I love you, and that's all that matters to me. Despite my assurances, Zane struggled to believe me, revealing deep-seated self-esteem issues that may have contributed to his single status. Determined to prove the authenticity of my feelings, I embarked on a journey to demonstrate the depth of my love for him. Throughout our entire relationship, I refrained from letting Zane spend money on me. While I wasn't a broke college student, I wasn't rolling in wealth either. Despite my financial constraints, I made sure to buy him gifts and cover my own expenses each time. I held a modest job, so I wasn't destitute. Zayn seemed to appreciate these gestures. Regrettably, Zayn's low self-esteem persisted, and he continued to doubt the authenticity of my love. Despite my best efforts to be supportive and understanding, his mistrust shattered my heart. It wasn't until the first 2 years had passed that I discovered the root of Zayn's self-esteem issues. Meeting his parents, Michael and Molly, shed light on his struggles. Michael, Zayn's father, had experienced a stroke of luck, winning the lottery and dramatically improving their lives. They purchased an extravagant house and secured their future with the remaining funds. However, Michael and Molly carried an air of superiority. During our initial encounter, Michael boasted, "Not everyone can make it big like me. I was a hard-working man, and look where it got me. Do you know how uncommon it is to win a huge lottery? The chances are very low, but I did it on the first try." They took pride in their decision-making skills, insinuating that Zayn, despite completing college, would never match their financial success. Molly hinted that Zayn's previous partners were gold diggers, leaving as soon as their financial situation improved. The couple openly questioned Zayn's ability to make sound choices. This attitude infuriated me. Zayn's parents indirectly accused every girl he dated of being interested only in his money. Over time, Zayn internalized these beliefs, contributing to his insecurities. The insinuation that I, too, was a gold digger became a humiliating part of the narrative. Fed up with the unjust assumptions, I decided to defend both Zayn and myself. I declared, "I'm sorry, but I have to disagree with you. Zayn has worked hard to establish himself in his career, and with time, he will achieve even greater success." Michael rebutted, "Well, that doesn't change the fact that women only want him for money. The money we have is ours, but Zayn does co-own the house. Ultimately, it will be his when we pass. Let me tell you, every time they see our $200,000 house, I swear these girls see dollar signs in their eyes." I can't vouch for Zayn's past relationships, but I'm certainly not in this for the money. I love your son, and that's the reason we're together. I have no interest in your house. Don't worry, Claire. Sometimes it's challenging to accept that people can be successful and live in nice houses. You live in a small rented apartment with roommates. After spending time around our house, you might start desiring it too. It's just a matter of time. Michael and Molly's comments were pushing my anger to the brink. I was on the verge of exploding. Zayn heard it all but chose not to respond or defend himself, steering the conversation in a different direction. His nonchalant attitude surprised me. On our way home, I decided to address it with him. "Zayn, your parents are being unkind. They're insulting both of us. Why didn't you speak up? What did you expect me to say, Claire? I can't be certain they're entirely wrong. Women in the past have used me to try and benefit from my parents' wealth. They made grand plans involving the house and how it would be ours once my parents passed away. Even if they were gold diggers, that doesn't mean I am one too. You stayed silent when your family insulted me as well. You know my family is well off now. There's a chance they're right about everything. I'm not saying you had bad intentions, but I can understand why it might seem questionable. You don't have parents, so you rely on my inheritance alone. What you're suggesting is absurd, Zayn. I've never pressured you to spend money on me. And just because I don't have an inheritance doesn't give you the right to label me a gold digger." Zayn remained unwilling to acknowledge my concerns. Insisting that he loved me, and the reasons behind it didn't matter, he shrugged off the need for further discussion. While some might have found solace in such assurances, I couldn't accept the thought of him harboring negative beliefs about me. I attempted numerous conversations, hoping to make him understand my perspective. I even suggested therapy, recognizing its potential benefits for him. However, he adamantly claimed there was nothing wrong, causing me to eventually abandon the effort. As time passed, I distanced myself from his family. We became engaged shortly after my college graduation, and although my job paid decently, I started saving to contribute to our wedding expenses. We split the costs evenly and got married when I was 22. However, the subsequent 3 years turned into a tumultuous period of my life. Zayn frequently visited his parents, returning home in a sour mood each time. I knew Michael and Molly were still taunting him and branding me as a gold digger. Despite my pleas for Zayn to limit contact with them, he continued to engage with his parents. Their words poisoned his perception of our relationship, convincing him that no one could genuinely love him. Even after years of love and care, Zayn remained suspicious of me. The burden of constantly proving myself became increasingly draining. However, the breaking point arrived on Zayn's birthday. In line with his preference for small celebrations, we had a quiet cake party at home. I presented him with the expensive watch he had desired. Zayn was elated with the gift, but my joy waned when he suggested visiting his parents to showcase it. Despite my reluctance, I accompanied him at his insistence. Upon reaching their house, Zayn eagerly displayed the watch to Molly and Michael. "Mom, Dad, look at this beautiful watch Claire gave me. I've been wanting it for a while now. Isn't it gorgeous?" "Oh, did she know, Zayn? It seems she does love you after all." We were quite concerned for a while there. "Don't get carried away, Michael. She's a gold digger. She married our son because we own a $200,000 house. Let's not forget the facts." "Yeah, you're right. I almost forgot that the house is the only reason Claire married Zayn." "Excuse me? Why do you think I married your son for your house?" "Well, you were just living in an apartment after working for 4 years. Besides, Zayn is so much older than you. Why would you marry him unless you want something from him? I'm sure our house was always an attraction, if not his money. I married your son because I love him. All your theories about my gold-digging intentions are wrong. Zayn knows the truth, and he will tell you that, won't you, Zayn?" To my complete surprise, Zayn remained silent. I was already feeling uncomfortable with my in-laws' belief that I was a gold digger, but Zayn's reaction, or lack thereof, shocked me. He kept his head down and avoided eye contact with me. Feeling perplexed, I decided to push him a bit. I couldn't fathom why he wasn't standing up for me. "Why are you not saying anything? Your parents always thought I was a gold digger. How will they know the real me if you don't tell them? Why are you quiet? Tell them they're wrong." I don't know what you want me to say, Claire. I don't know if my parents are off the mark. There might be a possibility that you're after this house." "Are you serious right now, Zayn? You believe I married you for your assets?" He's not wrong to think like that. It's suspicious that you've never considered buying a house. You haven't even discussed it with him. For someone renting a place, owning a house should have been a priority. Yeah, it should be a priority, but you've chosen not to work toward owning a house. Our place is expensive, and you can't afford something like this even if you tried. So you decided to marry Zayn and settle here. That makes more sense to me. I mean, why would you marry me, Claire? You might have feelings for me, but I think there's more to it than just love. I found myself speechless after this exchange. All the love I had for Zayn seemed to have been reduced to nothing. At the end of the day, my in-laws and even my husband viewed me as a gold digger. While my in-laws' reaction bothered me, it was Zayn's response that devastated me. In that moment, I made a decision. I wanted a divorce. I didn't immediately disclose my decision to them. I waited for the right time. So when Zayn and I returned to our place, I contacted a lawyer and initiated the divorce process. The lawyer assured me that the papers would be ready within a week. In the meantime, I opted to stay in a separate room. Zayn assumed I was just letting off steam and had no idea of what was coming. When the divorce papers finally arrived at my parents' house, I packed my bags and left. When Zayn called me in a panic, I instructed him to come to an address and bring my in-laws along. Despite his confusion, he agreed. Upon their arrival, I was waiting on the porch. They looked taken aback by the house. I said, "You must be wondering why I brought you here. It's a beautiful house, isn't it? No one can compare their house to this. It costs around $2 million in today's market. Pretty expensive, but worth the money. There's also furniture with an added value of millions. What is this place, Claire? I don't know why you have access to such a house. Why don't you guys come in so that we can talk? I can't tell you everything on my porch. What do you mean by your porch? I brushed off their astonishment and walked inside. They trailed behind, even more impressed by the opulence within. The owners of the house had spared no expense. As we settled down, I took a deep breath and addressed them. I've reached a decision, and that's why you're here. I filed for divorce. Here are the papers. We can proceed with an uncontested divorce if you agree. What? I don't understand. Why are you filing for divorce? Zane's voice held a mixture of confusion and concern. Because you and your parents believe I'm a gold digger. You think I'm after your house, right? Despite my assurances, you refuse to listen. So I'll spare you from my gold-digging self and divorce Zane. It seems that's what everyone wants. You're considering divorce just because my parents told the truth. That's ridiculous. We didn't say anything untrue. Why the dramatics? Zane's tone betrayed his disbelief. I think this is for the best, Zane. If she's adamant, you should sign the papers. At least then you'll find someone who truly loves you. His mother interjected, her expression unreadable. Why did you bring us to this house? Do you expect me to buy this for you as part of our divorce settlement? Zane's voice carried a tinge of accusation. Why would I need you to buy this house, Zane? This house is already mine, I replied calmly. The shock and disbelief etched on their faces hit me like a bomb. They regarded me with disbelief, as if I were joking. Zane and his family seemed utterly unconvinced. How on earth can you afford a house like this? You're renting, and your job isn't enough to cover this. Stop lying to us, Zane's father demanded, his tone sharp with suspicion. I'm not lying, Zane. Remember when I mentioned that my parents left me some inheritance? Well, this is the house I was talking about. It's under a trust now, but I'll officially inherit it when I turn 30. I don't work a high-paying job because I have a trust fund waiting for me. That's impossible. Your parents passed away a long time ago. They should have let you have the house earlier. Well, you see, my parents were aware of the potential leeches I might attract. So they instructed me never to disclose the house or trust fund to anyone. Call it foresight. But they knew someone could exploit me. Hence, they placed everything in a trust to keep it safe until I reached 30. By then, I'd hopefully be settled with someone who genuinely cared about me, not my inheritance. Oh my God, Claire. You should have told us about your wealth. We had no idea. This is a sizable house you have. We could all live very comfortably here. Yeah, you should have shared that sooner. We thought you were after our house. We could have avoided all the misunderstandings. I'd always knew Claire was perfect for Zane. I've been saying she's a great woman. Look how wealthy she is. Zane really found a great match. Hearing this, I couldn't help but laugh. Their attitude toward me had shifted so rapidly that it made my head spin. What was even more bizarre was that they soon seemed to forget about the divorce filing. I took out the divorce papers and signed them. As I was saying, here's my signature for an uncontested divorce. You can just sign these to make it easy if you want to fight. We can take this to court. I won't live with you anymore. Claire, listen to me. There's no need to rush this. You've already proven you're not a gold digger. There's no reason to get a divorce anymore. We'll even apologize for any misunderstanding. That should make things better, right? Yes, Michael is right. We're sorry, Claire. We doubted you for no reason. I don't want your insincere apologies, Zane. For 2 years, you allowed your family to berate me and label me a gold digger. I expected you to at least defend me. But no, you sided with them and accused me of being a gold digger as well. I won't stay with someone who doesn't respect his wife. I'm done with you. We can part ways amicably or involve the courts. The choice is yours. Zane, Molly, and Michael tried their best to change my decision, pleading with me to let go of the past. In their minds, what happened was just a simple misunderstanding. Not once did they show remorse for tarnishing my name. Their audacity fueled my anger. When I reached my breaking point, I demanded they leave before I called the police. My anger intimidated them, and they left. Over the next few weeks, Zayn and my in-laws continued to harass me daily. They begged, pleaded, and even offered bribes to convince me to stay. Their belief that I could be swayed with money only intensified my fury. It revealed that they still considered me motivated by financial gain. The irony was that, as Zayn co-owned the house with his parents, I was entitled to half of his share. This realization fueled their desperation for reconciliation. Despite their attempts, I remained steadfast in my decision to part ways. I relocated all my belongings to my parents' house, asserting my right to stay there even before officially taking ownership. Zayn and the in-laws persisted in reaching out, prompting me to change my number entirely. I wanted to avoid their constant attempts to contact me from unfamiliar numbers. Zayn attempted to discuss matters at my workplace, but security was informed and asked him to leave. Zayn still hadn't signed the divorce papers, holding out hope for a change in my decision. Nearly a year has passed since I initiated the divorce proceedings. With only a year or less remaining before the legal process concludes, I've managed quite well on my own. Living independently, I've found happiness and financial stability. While I've gone on dates, I'm not considering anything serious at the moment. According to a cousin of Zayn's, they are apprehensive about paying me my entitled share of the house. Legal fees are piling up, and their savings are insufficient. Zayn is even pushing for a sale, harboring resentment toward his parents for the upheaval in his life. At this point, I simply don't care and only want to be free from that toxic family. My name is Kelly, and my husband, whom I married 5 years ago, passed away 3 years ago in an accident. He was a kind and compassionate person. I met him through my brother Bob, who had been friends with him since high school, and he used to visit our house often. He was not very tall, had a slightly overweight physique, and was far from being handsome. However, what attracted me to him was his kindness. He noticed small things and would do anything I asked without complaining. Despite his lack of confidence, I loved him just the way he was. One day, as a college student, I confessed my feelings, saying, "I like you, and I want to be in a relationship with you." At that moment, he became flustered, and his face turned bright red. That's how I won his heart, and we decided to get married at the age of 25. We had happy days together, and having someone who looked only at me and loved only me made me feel blessed. I thought it would last forever, but then a sudden accident shattered everything. The times without him were painful, leading me into a dark world. No matter how much time passed, my tears never dried, and I cried every day. If my brother hadn't reached out to me while watching me suffer, I might have followed him. "Kelly, my restaurant is so busy. I can't handle it. Can you help me?" My brother, who owned a restaurant, had never asked me for help before. But this time, he showed weakness. Looking back now, I thought that helping out at the restaurant might help me recover gradually from the cheerful person I used to be. 3 years passed, and now I find my purpose in working at the restaurant. I bring dishes my brother makes and wash them. It's a life that I could never have imagined when I was working as an office clerk in a company. More and more customers are coming to see my smile. "I don't understand what's so good about that ugly smile of yours, but it must be doing something right for me," my brother said, laughing. His words, though harsh, had warmth to them. One day, a female college student came into the restaurant. She ordered but looked around the restaurant, particularly focusing on the kitchen. Wondering if she's a fan of my brother's dishes, I went to her table when she called. She said it was delicious and placed a white piece of paper on the table. "Please don't show this to the kitchen," she said, and left. Curious, I opened the paper after she left. It only had one sentence written on it: "Your husband's lover. Take responsibility for the pregnancy." Confused and shocked, I couldn't understand the meaning of those words. A pregnancy with the person who passed away 3 years ago. When was this even? She looked about 20 years old. If it was a love affair, it must have been 3 years ago, so when she was 17 in high school. I couldn't imagine my husband getting involved with a high school student. He, who loved only me, would never do such a thing. Besides, even when he saw high school girls, he would just laugh and say they were kids. Words like sugar daddy were frequently used and had become issues. Upon hearing that, he would say, "I wonder how people can do this with high school students. Oh, but men like younger women, right?" I intentionally steered the conversation towards his true feelings. Young? Well, some people might be into that, but I can't imagine it. High school students are just that, high school students. I only see them as kids. I'm only interested in Kelly, and I don't think youth means anything. What matters is looking at the person right in front of you. Anyway, why does something like this happen? It's foolish, isn't it? It won't lead to a real romantic relationship. I was relieved by my husband's words. This man won't betray me. It will be all right for sure. So I will continue to love only him. I will support him and savor the happiness of the present. However, what does this note mean? At night, after closing the shop, I consulted with my brother. I was given something like this. My brother took the note I handed over and laughed foolishly. What's this about a lover? That's impossible. How could someone who passed away 3 years ago have a lover? Aren't you getting worked up over something absurd? But it's just a silly prank. The person who left it was probably a student in her 20s. Maybe it was meant as a joke. But there's no way he would do something like this, right? Certainly, he was head over heels for you. So when she comes next time, why not ask her directly? Find out her intentions behind this prank, clean his name. Yeah, that's a good idea. As my brother suggested, it could be resolved by simply asking her. There's no way something like this could be true. Several days passed, but the woman I thought would come again never showed up. Although I was concerned about the note, I had no idea who she was or where she came from, so I thought it might end as a prank. However, just when I decided to forget about it, the phone at the shop rang. Hello? I answered cheerfully, but the caller was a young woman. Instinctively, I thought, is this the same woman from before, and gripped the receiver tightly. Did you read my note? I could hear a sly laugh in her voice, an unpleasant laugh. Yes, I saw it, but I don't understand what it means. Was it a prank or a tasteless joke? That's why I wrote it. I'm your husband's lover. I got pregnant by your husband. That's impossible. Can you tell me more about it? Details, you say. Can your mind handle it? Yes, I'll be fine. My husband would never do something like that. My husband would never cheat. He loves only me. No way. Why do you think that men are all the same? In the end, they slide into reality. Your husband betrayed you. Why don't you accept that reality? You've been betrayed. There's no way something like that could happen. What she's saying is wrong. I know that, but I don't know how to make her understand it. That's what I don't understand. When did this happen? And if it's true, what about the child? They should have been born long ago and be 3 years old, right? Huh. What are you talking about? That's impossible. Your husband got me pregnant, so I'm pregnant now. That's strange. My husband would never do something like that. What? Happy about it? Are you some kind of pervert being happy that your husband is cheating on you? No, it's not like that. But the idea of him cheating is just impossible, you know. I understand that, but I'm pregnant with your husband's child. This fact can't be changed. You're misunderstanding something. I think you should talk to someone else, not me. Why should I? I know it was your husband. He's having an affair with me, so it's only natural that I'm pregnant. Then where did you meet? I was working part-time at a store your husband used to come there. He was a customer. Yes, he used to come every day and persistently ask me out. No matter how many times I declined, he kept insisting. I went out with him reluctantly. In the end, when did this happen? Does it matter when? Within the past 3 years, of course. That's unbelievable. You've got the wrong person. My husband. I'm not mistaken. Your husband had your photo on his phone. Certainly, he would have my photo if it were mine, but it's impossible. If something like this were true, I would want to meet him again. Well, if that's true, I'm actually happy. Huh? What are you talking about? Are you going crazy because your husband cheated on you? No, it's not that. But it happened within the past 3 years, right? That's right. Could you tell me when it happened? Why are you so persistent? 6 months ago. 6 months. I looked at my brother. He was also laughing, saying, "If that's true, then it's a ghost. A woman impregnated by a ghost is quite something. You seem quite relaxed about it. Thanks to being impregnated by your husband, my life has gone haywire. What are you going to do about it?" Why would you say that? My husband passed away 3 years ago. Huh? Are you trying to make up such a lie to escape? I'm not trying to escape. It's the truth. He passed away in an accident 3 years ago. This is a fact. I can't believe such a thing. Could you be mistaken for someone else? There's no way. I've been to your store, and I've seen your husband in person. I wouldn't mistake someone I like. Is he really my husband? Yes, we work together, don't we? I thought for a moment. The only 2 men I work with are my brother and employee Tom. How old is this person? Around 30. Is he slim or on the heavier side? He's slim, tall, and quite handsome, I think. You're wasting your chances with him. I looked at the 2 men in the kitchen. Tom was tall but on the heavier side, while my brother was tall, slim, and, I hate to admit it, quite handsome. So the woman who visited the store and saw the kitchen probably mistook my brother for my husband. But I couldn't imagine my brother getting involved with such a young girl. Still, I had a feeling this woman wouldn't admit her mistake even if I told her. Which university do you attend? Huh? Why do I have to tell you that? If you want him to take responsibility as my husband's lover, shouldn't you reveal your identity? As long as you provide the money, that's enough. I just need the money to raise this child. Why? I wonder. What do you mean? If you claim to be his lover, shouldn't you talk to him directly instead of calling his wife? I can't do that. It would cause him trouble. I can't inconvenience him like that. By telling me all of this, you're already causing him a great deal of trouble, don't you think? That's just an inconvenience for you, not for him. When you separate from your spouse, what do you think will happen? By that time, he'll probably come to me. So, you want to marry him? Marriage? I'm not thinking about that at all. Anyway, if you give me the money, I won't interfere with your marriage. If he's happy being with you as a couple now, I won't ruin his family. That's quite a generous approach. Or I could consider having an abortion, but I'd still need money for that. How much are you asking for? 1 million. 1 million? Yes, 1 million. If you give me that much, I'll forget about you two as a couple. In that case, can you come to the store tomorrow at 3 o'clock? Will you have the money ready? Yes, I'll prepare for it. But this is only if what you're saying is true. I can't agree to this kind of conversation over the phone during business hours. If I go there at 3 o'clock tomorrow, he won't be there, right? Why not? Wouldn't it be better if he was there? You can have a proper conversation with him. If you don't talk to him face to face, you won't know if the child in your belly is really his. I'm sure he'd be delighted. You're insane. It's a child from your husband's affair. The child is innocent, isn't it? If it's true, it is true. Well then, I'll give you the opportunity to talk to him. That's not necessary. Why not? Because if I did that, it would cause him trouble. It's cruel to meet his lover in front of his wife, isn't it? Oh, I think he'd be pleased. After all, it's a relationship that resulted in having a child. No, I want to talk to you, not him. Why are you so stubborn? Well, fine then, if that's what you want. Anyway, come tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Got it? And please don't tell him anything. I hung up without saying yes or I understand. Then, my brother and Tom looked at me. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. So what was it all about? It turns out it's one of the guys from this store. Then employee Tom shook his head. That's not me. I have a wife, you know. Huh, Tom, you're married? Yes, to a 2D wife. I'm dedicated to her. Oh, I see. Indeed, for an anime enthusiast like Tom, real-life women were probably out of the question. My brother also denied it entirely. I'm not interested in students. I prefer ripe fruits over green ones. You're saying all that, but basically you're into mature women, right? Well, you could say that. But you know, judging from the appearance of the woman, it seems she's more into someone like your brother. Huh, manager, did you have an affair with a girl? Hey, stop it. Well, it doesn't seem like that either way. But one thing's for sure, it's not my husband. So, what are you going to do? She mentioned tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Yeah, I told her to come at 3 o'clock tomorrow. She asked for 1 million, right? Yeah, she did. She demanded 1 million while talking about taking responsibility. But there's no way I have that kind of money. That's strange. Is this some kind of money-focused scam? Yeah, I think so too. Plus, the fact that she refuses to meet her supposed affair partner is just not adding up. Yeah, if you think about it normally, as a lover, you want to talk it out with the other person. Refusing to meet someone you supposedly like is hard to believe. This person needs to be exposed for who they really are. You can even file charges for fraud or defamation. True, but I don't really want to go that far with a girl. Is that so? I think she should face the consequences. She should learn from the pain and never do it again. If we involve the police, her life will be in ruins. That's just pitiful, Kelly. You're kind. I believe he would say, hate the sin, not the sinner. Yeah, he would probably say that. So, I didn't want to push her too hard. If possible, I wanted to resolve this peacefully. I want to make her realize that what she's doing is wrong. If I can do that, I believe she'll be saved. And so will I. My husband would understand my intentions. The next day arrived, and we closed the shop temporarily to wait for 3 o'clock. After taking the short break, we would usually open the restaurant in time for dinner. However, today we didn't have the luxury of taking our time. My brother Tom and I were all waiting exactly at 3 o'clock. The door to the shop opened, and a woman walked in. She claimed to be pregnant, but there was no sign of a protruding belly. My brother and Tom were hiding in the shadows of the kitchen, watching us. I invited the woman in and served her a cup of coffee, even though she shouldn't be drinking it if she's pregnant. Please have some coffee to calm down. The woman didn't hesitate and took a sip of the coffee. I knew it. She's not really pregnant. Her belly isn't showing, and this just doesn't seem like a pregnant woman. Is this cheap coffee? You're being stingy. Poor guy deserves better. I'm sorry about that. This isn't a coffee specialty shop. So have you prepared the 1 million? 1 million? Huh? Why do you think I can just come up with that kind of money? Why not? You said you have it ready yesterday. Well, I did say that, but I didn't promise to have it ready. Besides, it's not easy to come up with such a large sum of money. Why not? Your restaurant is always so crowded. I know how many customers you have. True, thankfully, we have many customers. But you see, this isn't my shop. I'm just an employee here. No way, it's not a lie. Why are you lying to protect your husband like this? It's not like that. I just find it strange that you're claiming to be my husband. What's so strange about it? All right then, let's meet my husband, shall we? I told you I don't want to meet him. All right. I placed a photo of him on the table that I had brought from home. What is this? My husband. He passed away 3 years ago, my beloved husband. No, if you claim to be my lover, that would mean we were dating 3 years ago, right? In that case, you were in high school. Are high school students dating 28 or 29-year-old men? But the style you were describing yesterday seems quite different. My husband isn't skinny, and he's not handsome either. So, is this person really your lover? No, it's not like that. It's not him at all. Stop lying. You work in the kitchen here. To go to such lengths, you're a truly terrible woman. Then it seems my husband's lover is someone else. My husband is the only person like this person. but he works together here. That's right. Bob, Tom, come out, please. When the two of them came out of the kitchen, the woman pointed at my brother and exclaimed, "This one, he's your husband." Oh, was it me? I've never played with you. But if you love me so much that you want to imagine a pregnancy, should we start dating now? I'm not married either, and it might just be perfect. My brother laughed and put his arm around the woman's shoulders. The woman, who had just spoken to someone for the first time and was subjected to such treatment, had a twisted expression on her face. Meanwhile, Tom took her bag and pulled out her student ID from inside it. "Well, your name is Anna, right? You go to the university, which is pretty close by. Hey, give it back. Don't take things out of someone's bag like a thief. Easy there. You were trying to extort money from me with lies about pregnancy and 1 million. You were attempting fraud and slandering Kelly's husband. Now you want it back. Give it back. Why did you do something like this? If you tell the truth, I'll get it back to you. Well, if you don't tell me, I'll expose you to the university. Is that okay? I did it because I liked you. I lied because I liked you. Give it back. I told you so. It's fine." It was clear that it was a desperate lie to get out of the situation. But if she said she did it because she told the truth, there was no choice but to give it back. "Here you go." The woman snatched the student ID card that Tom had handed her and put it in her bag. "Anna, if you like me that much, do you want to date from now on? Exclusive to hotels." "Stop it." She responded seriously to her brother's joke, broke, and left the store with her face all red. "I see, was it because you liked me? There's no way it was like that. It was just a lie to get out of the situation. Well, it's okay. The manager seems happy, but why did you do something like this? I'll look into it." "You can't investigate something like this, can you? Don't underestimate me. I may look like this now, but I used to be in a special unit during my free days. A special unit. From just one photo, we can find out everything about the person, from their address to their school, home, and family composition. And if there's something I can't figure out on my own, I can ask my friends from the special unit, and they'll catch it faster than the police." "I see. That's kind of scary in a way. So, I'll investigate it right away," Tom said with a smile on his face. In less than 2 days, Tom told her a lot of information. But the more she heard, the more ridiculous it seemed. In other words, it was all because of that woman's selfishness. It made her angry to think that her husband had been slandered for such a thing. But this solved everything. Even if the woman came again, there were plenty of ways to deal with her. Moreover, since she had already said that she liked her brother, she decided it was best to leave it to her brother, after all. After all the embarrassment she went through, she probably won't come again, Tom said with a smile. Both she and her brother agreed on that point. Even if she did come again, she wouldn't be in her right mind. However, 3 days later, the woman unexpectedly showed up. As soon as she entered the store, she pointed her smartphone screen at her. "You're the one who did this, right?" "Huh? What do you mean by this?" "This?" She showed her the screen. On it, it said that Anna, a student at my university, had pretended to be pregnant and tried to scam 1 million. It even detailed her passionate affair with a white university professor and the reality of her sugar daddy activities, as well as the fact that her 1 million debt was due to cosmetic surgery. Is this true? It's true, and I'm in trouble because of it. It's because you posted this. I didn't do anything. I didn't tell anyone else except you. Who else would know about this? Pretending to be a mistress, getting pregnant, and then demanding 1 million. Who else would know about that? But I really didn't know. I don't even use social media. Then who did it? Because of this article. I'm being told to drop out of university. Oh, that's tough. It's more than tough. Even the university professor who used to be my sugar daddy is avoiding me because he's afraid of getting involved with me. How many people were you in that kind of relationship with? It's for the money. You mean you spent money on plastic surgery? I need money for my cosmetic surgery to maintain this face. But how could you do this to me? If I run out of money, my face will start to deteriorate. That's scary. So it's your fault. Take down this article. Take down all of this. Even if you asked me to take it down, it wasn't me who posted it, so there's nothing I can do. Why not? I just did it to pay off the debt I incurred from my cosmetic surgery. Wait a minute. Did you frame my husband to pay off the debt from cosmetic surgery? That's right. But in the end, your husband was already dead, so there was nothing I could do. I thought he was the manager because he was close to you. That's a bit, considering what you did to my husband. This is unavoidable. But I didn't do it? That's right, Anna. Kelly didn't do anything. Maybe someone was watching. In this day and age with advanced technology, you never know who's watching and where. Besides, you should be grateful that it ended with just this. In reality, you could be charged with defamation and fraud against Kelly's husband. And that wouldn't be surprising. Why would it be defamation against a person? You can still be charged with defamation against the deceased. You're a university student, so you should have that much knowledge. If you keep making a scene here, your story will spread on social media again. What did you do? Look around you. When she looked around, the customers who should have been eating were all pointing their smartphones at Anna. It was probably a video. It was clear that they were planning to publish a follow-up article. This is terrible. Because of this article, I have to drop out of university, and I don't even know what will happen to my job. She shouted and quickly left the store. She ran away. But who on earth would write such an article? I wonder who it could be. Tom was laughing, but he said, "In reality, you're doing something that could get you arrested by the police. It's fortunate that you didn't get caught. That's probably why you're getting your just desserts," he said, and when he returned to the kitchen, he laughed and said, "I surprisingly understand it," and raised his thumb. After that, Anna reportedly quit the university. She cried and exposed the truth in the store, and the article started to spread rapidly on social media again, revealing her attempted fraud. Her friends were disgusted with her, and all the people who had been her friends left her. She even broke up with her boyfriend at the time, and in no time at all. She lost everything. Unable to find work, she fell into the nightclub scene. However, even there, she was looked down upon because of the social media articles, and customers who approached her thinking she was an easy target quickly got tired of her. Harassed by her colleagues, she finally left the job. In the end, she couldn't find a job and faced daily scolding from her parents, which took a toll on her mental health. She couldn't work and couldn't go outside. All she had waiting for her was a deteriorating appearance and a dark room. On the other hand, as for me, I continue to work at my brother's restaurant. Customers who look forward to my smile often ask me out, and I've been dating a man with a similar build to my late husband, enjoying our dates. My brother, on the other hand, seems to be considering dating college girls as he's engrossed in some strange websites, and our employee, Tham, is deeply immersed in his 2D wife. Our restaurant, as bustling as ever, fills the air with delicious scents, waiting for customers.